right, welcome back to the party, everybody. I am your host, Fletch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Everybody hit that like and subscribe, and let's party. Big shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back to check this out, even though you missed the live party. Guys, that is the best part, so make sure you are here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes whenever I feel like it. So hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and you will never miss an Indian Jesus live party ever again. Before we begin, let's also say thank you to mysickshirt.com. Whatever your persuasion, they've got something for you. And of course, it is the only place to get your very own The Indian Jesus official merch. Only at mysickshirt.com. All right. We got a show for you today. Welcome to Melted Mind Media. What's going on, brother? So, hi, Mort. That is our co-host, Morty. So, I have a guest for you today, but not quite yet. So, he is going to be coming in a little bit later, and he is a liberal dude who is kind of very much a fan of Biden and a fan of what's going on in Ukraine. And I don't want to say too much and put words in his mouth, but he's not able to be here right now. So, I figured let's try something. A lot of times I get pushback, let's say, that I really only talk about culture war issues and who cares about that, and you know, there's bigger stuff going on and da 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 da. So I am while we are waiting for David, our guest, to come in, I wanted to share with you guys the culture war episode from last week, because I thought there was a lot of good conversations in there. So I figured we'll just take some of these clips, talk about this, and then as David comes in, you'll see how closely these things are actually connected and how they tie right into one another. So as always, if you cannot hear the video, please do let me know.
One of the bigger issues with pronouns and stuff and all these things is, for one, there's no logical consistency to teach. Nope. You end up with these viral videos of this young woman on TikTok with, you know, hundreds of thousands of views saying frog and frog self, and it seems to just be
this already.
and the people on the left will argue that, well, it's people exploring their self-expression, and it's just like, well, there's no logic. There's a flag for everything. All you're basically telling kids is nothing. You're telling them chaos, static, noise, no definitive understanding of what's going on.
And I mean, kids already don't know what's going on in terms of reading and doing math and all that kind of stuff. So to be adding all of this on, and not just socially, but like really shoving it down these kids' throat, I mean, what could be a worse idea? Shout out to Ziggs. Welcome to the party, brother. Good to see ya.
Perhaps an adult could understand enough about reality to explore various ideas around how do you categorize. But to go to a child and say an infinite number of categories, every day they're learning something that was just made up yesterday, they're going to have no framework for what's going on.
Well,
but sorry, just please, no. To address the harming themselves, with the laws being passed in California, Washington, and a bunch of these other states that protect third parties who would bring a child for gender reassignment or medical intervention, we're now entering the territory where a 10-year-old kid who has no understanding of what's going on is told by an adult, and this has happened to personal friends of mine twice, and that seems like a heck of a lot for me.
I was just going to say, like, for one person to know 2 instances of a kid being trans like that, I mean, you can say, oh, that's just one off, that's just one off, but how many before it's not just a one-off?
Two people that I know had their daughters come home with the teachers telling them that they were trans or lesbian, and they were not. They were 10. And when the parents explained to them, okay, let me ask you, you think you're this, do you know what this means? And the kids go, what? No. Now, what happens if you're in California and the parents are more susceptible to whatever you say, honey? Next thing you know, these kids who have no idea what Lupron is or what it means to get puberty blockers is on a fast track for this, which has resulted in 50,000 people on Reddit joining the D-trans community and an endless slew of posts of people threatening suicide.
And I told you guys, as even in the last few years, I don't know the exact numbers, but I remember somebody talking about that and that subreddit, and the numbers have just skyrocketed. And we knew this. I've been telling you since we watched What Is a Woman that this is coming, that this is inevitable, that pushing this on everybody is going to lead to detransitioning, and it's just not cool. Shout out to M169. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. Says it's a social contagion.
Bingo.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you're just joining us, we are going to have a guest, David, coming in, and we're going to be talking about the Ukraine war, but I am doing something that it's something new. We're going to try to mix things and see how they play together. So stick with me. It's either going to work or it's not. You are going to find out.
What I see in the data, and so if you look at the desistance rates, what is it? The number I believe is like 68 to 95% of children who identify as transgender will 95%. Doesn't mean detransition. It means that if left to go through their natural puberty, they end up identifying with their biological sex. Typically, they end up being either autistic or gay. What happens now is they will just affirm whatever it is the kid is saying, despite the fact the majority of these kids would self-identify if they're allowed to go through puberty. My concern here is you bring in young kids who don't understand what they're hearing. You layer on books and ideas and things that are more confusing to a child than anything. You layer on the social factor of Instagram, likes, views, etc., and you end up with all of.
What do you expect to happen? What do you expect to happen? Shout out to Daniel Cabrera. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. So the war in Ukraine has got ish to do with me or mine. Let some other UN nation deal with it. And so that is in reference to the running poll that we have. Replay gang, let me know in the comments below, which is more important to talk about, gender ideology or Ukraine war? Which one is more important to talk about? Let me know in the comments below. Welcome to the party, David. Excuse me. David's going to be our guest coming in. Daniel, welcome to the party, brother. We also got Kerm in the building. What's good? What's good? Said me being the one guy in chat who's pro sending stuff to Ukraine, but aggressively anti-Biden. Well, this is awkward. Well, it's not because we're all going to talk about that. We're going to get into all of that and what the difference is between, having, just going along. And maybe there are reasons that you have to want to send stuff to Ukraine that has nothing to do with being liberal, doing this, that, or the other. And as David comes in, we are going to tie that to, more of the culture war issues. But yeah, just let you be you. If that's your opinion, then stand by it. Stand by it. And then to what we're doing now, Kerm says, Tim, do be scoring W's. Always, always, always.
All of these stories of these prominent, now famous detransitioners saying,
hey, there he is. David in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So yeah, I switched them the other way. So he's just finishing up dinner and I'll be on pretty shortly. Can't wait for you, brother.
I didn't understand. More horrifyingly, you end up with these stories on Detrans Reddit, where we read one last night where a 17-year-old was threatening suicide because she felt manipulated into getting a double mastectomy, testosterone, and it ruined her life. And now she feels like she can't lead a normal life.
Well, either way, you can't lead a normal life. This isn't like getting a tattoo even, where it's pretty permanent, but you can get it removed. Once you're down that road, there is no more going back to normal.
You have these laws being passed that would protect a third party. A third party can take someone's child to the state, dramatically alter their life, cause irreversible changes and or harm, and be legally protected because these kids are not equipped to understand what they're signing up for. My last point on this is, if desistance rates truly are between 60 and 95%, and suicide rates are around 40 to 50%, the smartest and most logical thing we can do, considering the majority.
Listen up, because this is an argument that I've been making from the beginning, that simply putting your child into the group that has a higher self-deletion rate is something to think about. Daniel says the alphabet community started this war when they stated they're coming for our children. Vocal minority, though it may vocal minority though it may be. Don't mess with my kid. Yeah, I mean that's the line. People are not willing to play around with kids. Pun intended. So let's see. I'm gonna back this up. This is exactly what I've been saying.
The smartest and most logical thing we can do, considering the majority of these kids will identify with their biological sex, not be trans, and thus experience lower rates of suicide, is not to intervene at all in any medical way for a child who's experiencing gender dysphoria until after puberty. If we're looking at it from a simple probabilistic standpoint, You got to
listen to the numbers.
The lowest number, 60%.
So we're taking the lowest number. We're being as fair as possible. And let's just play these numbers out.
You have a greater than chance probability your child will just self-identify with their biological sex and thus not experience a 50-50 suicide rate.
Yep. So what he's saying is that if you are a child and you think that maybe, changing your gender is for you, then just having that thought does not inherently put you in a group that has a 50 to 60% self-deletion rate. If you do, you are being put into that group. And so regardless, obviously, statistics and probability don't really matter to the individual because each individual is an individual. But if we don't know, and if you can't tell the future, then why would you put your child into that group when you can wait for them to go through puberty and maybe that's not exactly what they want? Raise your hand if you got exactly what you wanted, everything that you wanted from your parents when you were a kid. Didn't think so. It just doesn't make sense. Melted Mind Media said, if people don't want to be saved, don't save them. They learn or falter, which is usually the position that I would take, except in this case, we're talking about children who don't know any better. It's not that they don't want to be saved. It's that they don't know that they need to be saved. That is the problem. Big shout out to anybody who is watching over on Kick. This is the first stream I think that is working up on Kick. I'm trying to double check with the chat and everything, but please say hello. Be part of the conversation and let's party. Daniel said, to sit idly by and say do nothing makes you guilty by omission and inaction. Completely agree. Oh yeah, that's why it's all about, hey, if you're an adult, do whatever you want. Whatever you want. Just leave the children alone.
It seems like the math is fairly obvious. You transition your kid, you are boosting their suicide rate to 47%.
Well, and I was going to say, for my part, I have two friends who they had CPS called on them. If you didn't seem like you were immediately celebrating, affirming, CPS was called on them. And then this is what I'm noticing, just overall, is that the California legislature and other places, in my opinion, are chipping away at parental responsibilities, traditional parental responsibilities. And this area is one. But in the midst of this, we do have a growing number, little by little here, of young people who are detransitioning. But the thing I'm concerned about is that there is the
before she moves on to what she's saying she's really concerned about is that, there is a small number. But the point here is that you are pushing for more. So whenever we bring up an example of, hey, this is happening, and we don't like, oh, that's just one example of this. That's just one example. You're just cherry picking. It's like, yeah, we have to do that now because we're trying to nip it in the bud. That's the whole point.
Positioning.
Daniel says, I wouldn't sit by and wait for any kid being attacked by a pedo or influenced by such. Why would I sit back for this? Exactly. Well said. M169 said CPS has been on a power trip for the last 20 years. I was not aware of that. I don't have kids, so I don't really know what's been so crazy that they've been doing. Zig says these teachers are doing most of the enabling and then some. Do it for the clout. Yeah, so I believe these are both teachers. And obviously here we have a rational teacher, and on the other side, maybe not so much. Daniel said CPS needs to be burnt down and rebuilt from the ashes. What's going on with CPS? I didn't know about all this. Let me know.
But the thing I'm concerned about is that there is this messaging of celebrate towards those who are making these decisions. But the detransitioners are often humiliated, silenced, and shamed. And to me, that is indicative of part, and I don't think everybody believes that. I think there's a lot of people that don't, but I think the way in which I have seen detransitioners treated, it's It's so sad.
See, I don't actually agree with this. However, I do 100% understand where you're coming from. And I see that logic and I understand your mathematical model. And that statistically, I understand your point of view. And I get that. However, I'm going to make a comparison. And again, because I just love getting people to hate me. That's
all right. Well, Melton My Media said CPS has taken kids from parents who don't want them to transition. Well, that I'm hugely against, but M169 is saying the last 20 years. Certainly, transing kids is not a thing that was relevant 20 years ago. So that's what I'm interested in. And we got, Daniel saying the same kind of thing. So, I mean, I don't have kids, so I just don't know.
That's just like my job, right? It's like, do you remember...
Hey, welcome, Indie Bell to the party. Owner of my6shirt.com. Go and get yourself one of these. Welcome to the party, brother. Good to see ya. Daniel says they will side with a mother who is on drugs or alcohol over a father who is able to support the child because the child belongs with the mother. Like the lead attorney always says, they like the judges. They like to keep the status quo. They like to keep the status quo. So if the child was alive and mom's on drugs, but we can keep it that way, let's keep it that way. Let's keep it that way. Hey, shout out to Dan Jensen. What is good? Welcome to the party, Dan. Good to see ya. Said, what the F is that on the screen? That, sir, is a teacher. That, sir, is a teacher and is going to explain right now why he thinks that despite agreeing with the fact that if you trans your child, you are automatically putting them into a group that is probabilistically way higher to self-delete, but you should still do it because
kind of like pre-2020, where like the classic news was Black individuals are targeted by the police and it never makes it on the news. And that was the news story. Like the news story itself was Black people are never on the news. That to me is the same situation where it's like the current news story is detransitioners are never on the news, which inherently puts them on the news, right? Like
this is an argument. I forget who it was, but somebody else was, we were looking at a meme. We were looking at him. Oh, it was the Freedom Tunes video that I did where Seamus was fixing the leftist memes. And there was a bunch of people that were all exactly the same on one side at a table. And they were the trans people. And then there was a detransition over here. It was just one. And there was a million microphones there. Meaning like nobody cares about the trans people. All we care is about the detransitioners. But it's like, yes, they are the canary in the coal mine. They are the people who are going to be able to warn an entire generation not to screw themselves up. So that's exactly why we want to put them on the news. What do we need trans people in the news for? They're all over the place already. Dan said, so I'm going to call you Daniel now that we got Dan Jensen and Daniel Cabrera. Said, I'm a divorced parent that this has been my experience. Wow. Yes, I'm with that, Melton Media. I am very, very sorry to hear that, brother. Daniel goes on to say, it is what it is. Man, roll with the punches, or you'll end up like 60% of the trans community. Well said. Well said. Shout out to you. Let's have a drink to you, sir. Oh my goodness. Dan Jensen. Yo, Dan never comes by without just dropping me a little something. And hey, it don't gotta be a lot, but it means a lot. It means a lot. Thank you so much, brother. Where's Morty? Morty, come get your treat. Come here. Look. Oh, he's hiding. We'll save them up for him. But that's right. Every single donation comes with a treat for my dog, Morty. Right now, he is hiding from the rain. And it was just his birthday yesterday, 2 years ago, whenever it was. But thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. And of course, that makes you the new sponsor of the stream. You guys know when we get a new sponsor, like just jump back in.
You know what I mean? Like I understand your perspective, but I've heard it so many times by the same groups of people. Like, well, we never pay attention to detransitioners because that amount is like infinitesimally small. And actually we do hear about it all the freaking.
So is the number of trans people at all.
Time. You just are, it's always in the context of, we never hear about detransitioners. Yes, we do. It's literally on like, it's like on every YouTube channel and podcast. Right. I hear it consistently. And then like that other side note though, that I do.
We should be hearing that consistently because we're hearing the other side of that consistently. So why wouldn't we want the actual story? All you're saying is, well, yeah, I want to talk about this issue, but only my side of the issue, because that, doesn't really help my issue. So, let's just not talk about that. Oh my goodness. Melted Mind Media. Morty, come here. Come on. They're rooting for you. Let's see if I can do this. I'll use the empty peanut butter that he got. Put a little peanut in there. Come here. Come here. Not even moving. Not even moving. We are going to keep trying. We are going to keep trying. And of course, that makes you the new sponsor of the stream. Danny was short-lived, but I do appreciate it.
Idea of like, well, it's always like celebrate. Just an idea. Just an idea. That idea of, yes, parents, you guys, you know your kids and you know them extremely well, right? However, if you don't celebrate a kid's exploration into different topics, they sometimes start pushing back without even knowing what they're pushing back against.
Really? This is her argument? This is her argument? That if you accept the fact that your child wants to be trans, then they're not going to want to be trans anymore. So don't accept that your kid is trans so that, like, what? I really do need to hear that again. But oh my goodness. The wars have begun. Morty, come on. This is all for you, pal. Come on, buddy. Thank you so much, guys. Oh man, back and forth. Well, let's hop back in. Thank you so much, guys. Very, very much appreciated.
Sure. Yep. Yes, parents, you guys, you know your kids and you know them extremely well, right? However, if you don't celebrate a kid's exploration into different topics, they sometimes start pushing back without even knowing what they're pushing back against. And that's actually what I'm more worried about. That idea of, and of course I can't speak on like specific clients, right? But like I can say I've had multiple instances where a parent has, come to me and being like, oh, well, she wants to be called he now. What do I do? And I got to say, I say the exact opposite thing of kind of what you're going for, is I say, like, go with it. Because when you start pushing against it, they start pushing back on the parent without even knowing what they're pushing back on. And I've had plenty of students, and this is nothing against the trans community.
Well said, Daniel. Once is too many times, and they want it more. Like, that's not okay. Kerm's saying the amount of detransitioners is largely irrelevant. The point is that their stories point to an inherent flaw in the healthcare model that lets too many people false positives slip through. Well said. It's not about how many times it's happening. It's about the mechanism by which it did happen in the first place. Well said. Indie Film says indulging someone's delusions does not help them. It hurts them. Well, another on the head right there. M169 said they're going to do it anyway, was the comprehensive sex ed argument in the mid-90s. Yep. And we all know that it was the states that did the abstinence only kind of thing that were getting more teen pregnancies and STDs and all that stuff. So it's just a non-argument. It's a non-argument. It's the same thing with the drug argument. I don't know. Daniel says, how many people have self-diagnosed? All of them. And are now shoving their belief down our throat with no actual treatment going on the side. Very true. Very, very true. And of course, we do know trans and being gay are very different things. Yep. You guys know it.
Such, like, obviously, right? But I've had plenty of students who, they are gender queer and whatever, and their pronouns say whatever. And I've also had plenty of students where they said, oh yeah, I'm definitely trans. And we were like, oh, cool. Okay. They, them, he, him, she, her, whatever.
How do you know? Where is the question? How do you know? Why is that not a relevant question ever?
And you went with it for a couple months. And then they realized after just leaving it just going with it, they're like, actually, that's not a thing.
This is why parents don't want it in schools.
But like, okay. But again, like, how big is the problem?
But what do you mean? If you're saying, okay, this is why parents don't want it in schools, and I agree, then that's the end of the conversation. What else can come after that? But again, what? So something you already said.
Problem. It's just, I don't see it as a fundamental issue, right?
Well, it's not about what you see, because you see a man in a dress as a woman. That is the problem.
Of course, any teacher going outside of their realm of expertise as an issue, right? I am a learning specialist with a master's of science in education with a focus in language processing disorders.
Then you should be the first one on top of how bad all of this is. This is bastardizing the language. A focus in language processing disorders. I believe that this whole non-binary neopronoun thing in and of itself is a language processing disorder.
I'm not an endocrinologist. I can't say you should take this hormone. That's out of my scope. I can't say that. That's not allowed, or it shouldn't be, right? But also that idea of like, is it really that bad if like, oh, okay, you go by she, they, and then I call my student they, and everyone on TikTok, I can't believe you call students they, them, you're indoctrinating. No, like they literally asked me to call them they, them. Like,
okay, but when somebody says you are indoctrinating, just because they asked you to do something doesn't mean you have to abide by that. What was, I think, it was Any Film saying it, right? That indulging delusions. I mean, we hear it all the time, but, you know, the buying into somebody's delusion is not helping them. That is hurting them. Yeah, anyone indulging someone's delusion does not help them. It hurts them. And you just agreed that not only is this somewhat the case in your own mind, but we should ignore it because reasons.
Like, it's just, I don't know if this indoctrination thing is real.
Well,
I do understand the statistical analysis that you gave, though. I'd love to hear more about that.
So you, like, this is why it's so difficult to make any headway with these conversations, because she agrees with the mathematical model that you are putting your child at a greater risk simply by accepting these delusions. She's agreeing that it's reasonable for the parents not to want this stuff in schools, but because there might be a case where a child who thinks that they are trans goes to their parent and their parent will accept that, then they will push back and not be trans when they really are? What? How is that an argument? What are you even talking about? Shout out to Nick. Welcome, Niklaus, to the building. Welcome to the party. Say good evening, everyone. Hope you're doing, you're all doing awesome today. Good to see you, bro. Everyone, remember to hit that like button. Thank you, brother. Thank you. And welcome to the party.
Say it is.
Okay.
With books like Genderqueer and This Book is Gay being in schools, and there's a substantially, it's more than just these two books we have in front of us. And then, of course, critical race theory was the big debate a couple of years ago, because it seems like critical theory in general was being brought into schools in a variety of ways. So it is indoctrination.
Okay.
My response to most people is like, we want indoctrination. We just don't want that indoctrination. We want to teach the positive values of our moral frameworks, innocent until proven guilty, et cetera. Those are big components, the rights of the individual, meritocracy. And now we have children being taught an inversion of this. And we have, in many circumstances, the severing of the family unit in terms of don't tell your parents. Okay. The response from liberals is they're trying to force schools to out the children to their parents. Well, it's not your...
Yes, we would like you to force to out your... Like, if this is something that's going on, the parents need to know. End of story.
Or you have no right. If a child is experiencing anything, be it bulimia or some kind of gender confusion, it is not the state's obligation nor right to intervene in that regard. But that is what's happening.
Well, and I want to say something to that, because
please do.
For a couple things with regards to schools. I mean,
and again, if you guys are just joining us, hit the poll. We are going to be talking about the Ukraine war, and we are going to be mixing it all together. I don't know how well I'm going to do it, but I am going to try it just for you. We have the poll up right now, which is more important to talk about: gender ideology or the Ukraine war?
I mean, we had a situation where a volunteer at a school had threatened our oldest when he was young. And I noticed some change in him after school, and I was never told about this. So I actually approached the school staff, and then that's when I learned of the situation. There was another situation with our youngest in school where there were threats from other students. And so one of the times I went to the school board meeting is our youngest had multiple threats from a student, really descriptive, graphic threats. And what happened was I had been getting those notices about, your child's been exposed to lice, your child's been exposed to strep throat, but I was never notified when our littlest had these very scary experiences at school.
Liability issues.
Yeah, it's very concerning. And
But
so
nonetheless, a false equivalent. Like they're not the same thing, right? Like that idea of like, this is what I'm like constantly trying to get on, which is that idea of like, they're not the same thing. Like your child being threatened, you need to tell the parent.
How is that different? Please explain how that's different.
Your child is injured. You need to fill out an accident report. That actually,
if your child thinks that they are going to self-delete, then you have to fill out. This is what you're. It's a what is it? A distinction without a difference. So all right. So perfect. So David, hang on. Let's just finish this one up, and then we can dive right in. We've got David backstage, but I want to make sure we get the full on this. Are you ready to come up, David? Just give me a thumbs up. All right. Well, as if you have any thoughts on this as we're tying things together, please feel free.
Is usually mandated. It's like different if it's like, oh, someone.
I could explain what they meant by saying that if you say to some child who thinks they're trans that, oh, you aren't and you don't know what you're talking about, it's sort of the same sort of philosophy as telling a kid that you should never do, say like marijuana or something. Depending on how you approach that sort of subject, it can encourage them to double down on it instead of examining the choice itself. So I think that's just sort of what they were trying to get at that point in the conversation.
I mean, I understand that, but I don't think that's a good enough reason to even indulge this. At the end of the day, it's indulging something that is inappropriate. So all right, let's just put that to the side. So we are ending our poll here. We asked, what is more important to talk about, Ukraine war or gender ideology? And we got 60% the Ukraine war. So we have David here to discuss just that. So, yesterday we were talking about this in the Discord server, which you should definitely join. And it was kind of centered around when David Pakman was on the PBD podcast. And he was essentially saying that other countries preferred to have Trump in office rather than Biden, or
other way around.
Yeah, the other way around. And basically that it's better for Putin and all of them to have Trump in office than for Biden. And we're basically talking about what the what the lead up to the war was and how each president kind of had their role in there. So do you want to kind of just give your just a TLDR of your position from what we were talking about yesterday, and then maybe we could pick up from there.
Yeah, sure. I think a lot of my position yesterday, at least, was just centered around the fact that it seemed that the aggression of Russia towards Ukraine had been a long-standing thing in an attempt to reunify Russia or increase its standing against the NATO alliance. And this is something that extends back to the dissolution of the Soviet Union, but in particular was spurred in 2014, whenever Russia annexed Crimea and installed a number of Russian separatist groups in the Donetsk and Luhansk area. And so whenever that happened, I think that the wheels were sort of set in motion, that Russia was trying to at least advance and take over a large part of Ukraine, if not all of Ukraine. And so whether Biden or Biden or Trump were president, I believe that sort of aggression was likely to continue. And so then as we're looking at other countries and whether it's more valuable that we have Biden or Trump in office, I think that the question of Putin going full invasion on Ukraine is a bit of a missed signal in the sense that I think that this sort of thing would have happened whether Trump was in office or not.
And so that's kind of where I disagreed because it didn't happen. and I was we were kind of getting into the conversation about whether or not Trump was an ally, quote, an ally to Putin. And so my position was that even though there were stuff that they were working on together, that doesn't make them allies. But to be fair, you said if we're gonna call Trump an ally of Putin, then you would also call Biden an ally of Zelensky. That's fair to say, right? And the issue that I have with that is then I'm not saying that they are allies. That Trump and Putin are allies. I don't think that they were. I think that it was very clear to Trump that that Putin is a strong figure on the world stage. That Russia has a lot to do with how things are going in America, and so to cozy up and be diplomatic was important. So can you talk a little bit about why you think that my position on that is incorrect, and why in fact Trump is or was an ally to Putin?
Well, there were a number of different things that Trump did in favor of Putin whenever he was in office. One of the most key things probably being that he publicly disagreed with the U.S. Intel consensus about Russia hacking into like the DNC in order to act favorably in Trump's or on Trump's behalf. But then there were other actions such as inviting Russia back into the G7 to make the G8, increasing the role that Russia had on the world stage. There were a number of different attacks that happened in Ukraine, specifically involving that civil war in the Donetsk and Luhansk area, that Trump would sort of downplay, act like it wasn't a problem or something that needed to be involved with, right? And so that gave cover to Putin on the world stage, and in my opinion, would have emboldened him to do the actions that he's currently doing.
But is it so? And again, we talked about this a little bit, but now that we're here, I just want to clear up that. So it's not possible that even for somebody to think that Trump was doing that with positive intentions in the way of diplomacy, and not trying to be friends with him or to be allies directly like that.
I don't know how you would draw that line. I mean, these are actions that are above and beyond what we would typically do with other types of like countries and entities that we, I would say we have a diplomatic relationship with. Can you hold on just a second?
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, in general, I take issue with the notion of them being allies, because I think that's kind of a strong word. And so what do you guys in the chat think about, Ziggs is saying Trump is an ally with himself. Everything else is business. I tend to agree with that. Indie Films saying, are you saying Trump disagreed with the consensus of the intelligence community? We know the same people that said Hunter Biden's laptop was a Russian hoax and that Trump was a Russian asset.
I wrote down the total groups that said that Russia was behind those hacking, or that both the hacking and the dissemination of information during the 2016 election. That was the ODNI, the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Homeland Security, the Justice Department, and the Senate Intel community. They all were in agreement that it was the actions of Russia to hack into the Democratic National Convention and to selectively leak whatever information they had gotten in order to favor Trump. And so this was something that Putin and Trump had gotten together and discussed in Helsinki in 2018. And thereafter, they had a press conference in which Trump said, I talked to him about it. He said it wasn't Russia. I will say I don't see any reason it would be Russia. And so that sort of action just, was covering for.
So then the question is, you're saying that he specifically knows that Trump himself agrees with the intel communities, but he's lying to cover for Putin, and not that he happens to disagree with these agencies?
He's either incredibly incompetent and would put his own interests ahead of a huge amount of U.S. intel, or he was covering for Putin for some sort of personal gain. I don't think either of those options is very favorable.
Okay, and so what would what is the personal gain that he would get from all that?
Well, his campaign benefited from the hacking operations that Russia played out, and so both in the sense that by promoting that narrative, it would distance his campaign from those actions and make it seem like that's not something that he benefited from. But also, if that sort of thing would happen in the future, he's already planted that seed that Russia's not doing anything against us. So just go along with it.
I'm just, as any film brings up, I find it hard to believe that you find it that hard to believe that someone would have distrust in these agencies. We all see, like, everybody on the let's just simplify and call it left and right, but everybody on the right and a lot of people on the left are like, get rid of all the 3-letter agencies, and like a lot of people agree with that for a lot of reasons that have to do with them lying, them doing false flags, and stuff like that. So why is shout out to Steve? Welcome to the party, Steve. So that kind of goes into exactly what I was going to ask, where Trump tried diplomacy versus Biden trying or not trying has got us into what may very likely, I know you don't think that we are in World War III, but we are at the point where it is very likely we'll be in World War III. Is that fair to say?
Again, it's hard to say that Biden got us into this. This is
no. Well, let's leave it. Let's just say the situation that we are all in, that we are on the brink of being in World War III, if we're not already in World War III. Regardless of whose fault it is.
There is a war going on in Ukraine. This is a continuation of a Russian-backed separatist war that began mostly in 2014. In part, the conflict has been going on since that time. I mean, Russia didn't announce a full-scale invasion of Ukraine until 2022, but there were a lot of bombings and casualties in Ukraine, again, extending back to 2014.
Sure. So then again, if all of that is going on, and there is diplomacy under Trump, even if you think that it is personally enriching himself, even if you think it's for all the wrong reasons, and that maybe you think that the reason that we are here is for stuff that Trump did and Biden is just cleaning it up. Even if you think all of that, then what is the justification for thinking that it's an allyship versus diplomacy? I'm still stuck on that, because I don't see how you can just assume that it is that's what it is, instead of I was bringing up North Korea, and who else brought up North Korea? Someone else brought up he went into North Korea. He was praising Kim Jong Un is the younger one, right? Il, whatever. And so would you call him allies with North Korea, with Kim Jong Un?
It's hard to place where that stands with North Korea for sure.
Why is that? Why do you think it's difficult? I think it's pretty simple to say that no, Trump might
in addition to the praise that he would give Kim Jong Un, he was also quite stern on him as well. And I just don't think we saw anything like that in regards to Russia. And in fact, I think he was a lot more hard on other well-defined allies of the U.S., such as Germany, Canada, Mexico. He was very actively, we'll call stern with those countries in ways that I don't think that he was with Putin.
Well, okay. So let me draw a parallel. Let's say you do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I've got a few.
Okay. So let's say you got an older brother.
Yep.
Okay. So let's say you and your older brother are just hanging out, whatever. And you let's say you hate the nickname Davy. Like, don't call me David, or excuse me, don't call me Davey. I'm David.
Mhm.
All right. And your brother knows that. But let's say you are going out to a restaurant and the waitress is super friendly. Hey, what's your name? Hey, what's your name? And, you just say David and she thought she said Davey. Now, in that situation, who would it be more fair if they called you Davey, the waitress or your brother? Who would you be harder on?
My brother,
Why?
because I've got a long-standing relationship with them.
Bingo.
So if and just like in that situation, if we have a long-standing relationship with other UN and NATO countries, doesn't it make sense that if you have an issue with what they're doing, that you would be harder on them? Whereas you have, the analogy kind of falls apart in that you're not antagonistic with the waitress. But do you see where I'm going with that?
To a degree. I mean, if the waitress had also launched some attacks on my house, and I knew about that, and they were calling me Davey, then it would be pretty weird for me to be buddy-buddy with them as well, right? Like, we're not talking about a neutral
right, but
in this
yeah.
case.
So let's go with that. So let's say now, if it's just calling you Davey, then it's like, bro, come on, I don't like that name. She just misheard you, whatever. But now that same girl, not only has she called you Davey, but she's spitting your food. Now that kind of changes things, doesn't it?
Sure.
And so
it would make it even more strange for me to just be happy with this waitress individual, right? Like sure, there's like the personal slight that maybe another person that I know and respect has done, right?
Yep.
But they've also done something that that family member never would have done, right?
Sure. So then when you're talking about how to stop what's going on, are you better off getting a plate without spit in it by yelling and screaming, or by I mean, this analogy's kind of falling apart. But what I'm getting at is that depending on what the relationship is and depending on what the terms of that relationship are, you're going to react differently. So when it's a smaller thing with the people that you know, then it's much more likely that with Germany or with whoever else that you're saying, hey, yeah, we have an agreement. This is supposed to be going on. And if they, somebody else outside, then it's whatever. But then when it goes to a different level, now it's like, okay, the stakes have been risen by a lot. So if your brother is doing one thing, then like you can be a little bit harder and be like, yeah, what's good. Whereas the other person, you don't really know how they act. So if you want to get them to stop doing the thing that you don't want them to be doing, which is kind of where I was going. I didn't think I was going there originally with the waitress, but I'm trying to save it. But somebody's doing something that you don't want them to do. If it's your brother, you can behave one way. But if it's somebody that you don't know, or it's somebody you're actively antagonistic with, then you're going to behave differently. So my point is that comparing how Trump interacted with Germany to how Trump interacted with Russia is a false analogy.
Sure, but can we focus on some of the quote-unquote diplomatic acts that he was trying to do? Because one of the ones that I had a really big problem was whenever he proposed having a joint cybersecurity task force with Russia, right? And this seemed directly against U.S. interests, particularly given that Russia had a history of hacking U.S. entities. Beyond their other cybersecurity related issues that we've had, such as attempted hacks into, I believe, like the Department of Energy that has been tied back to Russia as well.
Okay.
What do you say about events like that? Like, do you think that it's smart to try to pair up with someone in an area that you know that they've been duplicitous before?
Well, I mean, it depends certainly, but in that particular situation, maybe it was not the best idea. This is certainly not my my area of strength, so I don't know enough about the specific the relationship in that context to be able to say it was a good idea or it was a bad idea. But all I'm saying is that I understand that even if it was a bad idea, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is automatically nefarious. Where it seems like you're saying it was a bad idea, therefore it must have been nefarious. Therefore, he must have been trying to enrich himself. Therefore, he must have been trying to do something for Putin.
So much as I'm saying it's not in our interest.
Okay, Fine. But then we go back to the idea of allyship. And
I'm
so
not as tied to the words ally versus, saying having like a diplomatic relationship with the group. I think that he acted favorably towards Russia in ways that he wouldn't with a lot of our genuine allies. And you can call that whatever you like. I just don't think that.
it's called business.
Sure. But if the business isn't in the U.S. interest, that's what I'm most concerned about.
And again, I'm totally fine with saying that there's things that Trump would have done or wanted to do that may not have been in the best interest of America. But that's still a different thing than allying with an adversary. And you seem to be saying that the same thing.
What would you say about him trying to bring Russia into the G7?
I think in like all of this stuff.
Is that not an act of trying to make them an ally of some sort?
I guess technically, sure, you could put that there. I would call that more of the U.S. and Russia being allies as opposed to Trump and Putin. But that sounds pretty good. I would rather be allied with somebody who wants to kill me than adversarial with somebody who wants to kill me. Wouldn't you?
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't.
So then you'd want to fight them.
Well, depending on who it is and what the conflict is, right? I wouldn't have wanted to be allies with 1940s Germany.
No, but if you could get them to stop by being allied and having that influence, then would you, if you could have stopped the Holocaust by having, I mean, my U.S. history, well, who was, was it not Truman? Whatever. If you were the U.S. president during during the Holocaust, and you could have stopped the Holocaust by what you call, working diplomatically with Hitler, you would not have done
it? Again, depends on if that sort of thing would have actually put the U.S.
It would have. I'm saying in this hypothetical, it would. This is the hypothetical that you are the president and you can win over because you've been so buddy with Hitler all this time since World War I. You got, people have been giving you crap that you've been, he's a strong leader. He's got some good ideas. I don't like what he's doing, saying about the Jews, but he's a strong leader. People like him. The same kind of stuff that Trump had said about Putin throughout his time, right? And so then you ally with them. And you are doing whatever you can. And I'm saying in this hypothetical, if you were able to ally with Hitler and stop the Holocaust, would you have done that or would you not have done that?
Where I think this analogy kind of breaks down is that I don't believe that allying with Hitler, for example, would have prevented him going after the Jews in the same way that I don't believe that being an ally with Putin would have stopped him from trying to reunify the Soviet Union. Because I don't think the end goal is attainable, I don't think that those sort of partnerships necessarily make sense.
And that's fair for you to think that. But again, we're talking about what Trump thinks. You're accusing him of doing things nefariously when he could just be doing the wrong thing.
I'm saying that he's doing things that were not advantageous to the U.S.
All right. Well, I mean, that's certainly a different position. So then, let's bring it back to where we are today. Is it fair for me to assume that you were in favor of all the money and munitions and all the stuff that's being sent to Ukraine?
Generally, yes. I think that a independent and less corrupt Ukraine is of benefit to the U.S., and as is making sure that the military advances of Russia are not emboldened, and that therefore he's less likely to move on to other nearby countries.
So you think if we back Ukraine and stop Russia, then what happens?
He does not move on to Poland and Belarus.
No, not what he doesn't do. What does he do?
If he's stopped?
Yeah.
Ultimately, at some point, he's probably going to have to concede. I think the best outcome is most likely going to be Ukraine independence minus the Donetsk, Luhansk, and Crimean areas. I think that it's very unlikely that the war ends without at least giving up that much territory.
Okay, and that's a fair position. But what makes you think that? I mean, certainly Ukraine was corrupt before 2014, but what make I guess what I'm getting at is that why do you think that Putin wouldn't, go all the way to nuclear war if, as you've been saying, this has been going on? This goes all the way back to the Cold War, as you said, about the USSR and all that stuff. I'm not convinced that putting a blockade on Ukraine right now just fixes it. And that kind of seems to be what you're saying, is that if we nip it in the bud early and we go and get involved in Ukraine and we stop Putin, then he's just gonna be cool.
No, I do not think that Russia is necessarily not going to continue being aggressive in one way, shape, or form, whether or not they capture Ukraine. So if they do capture Ukraine, I believe that the threat of nuclear war from Russia still exists. I just think that an independent Ukraine is in the interest of the US and NATO and the UN.
So where is the rest of NATO and the UN? Why is there such an emphasis on what America is doing?
I mean,
when it's not an American problem, it's a NATO problem, if anything. It's a UN problem, if anything.
I mean, we are providing support. Shared the source yesterday that neighboring countries are sharing more in terms of their or in terms of a percentage of their GDP than we are. I believe that there's a lot of parties that are interested in maintaining Ukrainian sovereignty and ending the war.
So this kind of goes back to, why then Trump was maybe not so easy on our allies, our actual allies, because it's put us in this position where we have a bigger hand to play in all this. So M169 says, so the guy who benefited from the corruption in Ukraine is the one best suited to oversee the end of the corruption? Make it make sense. So I assume she is referring to, the like Burisma and all the Hunter Biden stuff from Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Thoughts?
Well, the prosecutor that was fired in Ukraine was fired under the guidance of a large number of Western allies. It doesn't seem to be something that Biden benefited from. Sorry, Joe Biden.
Okay, I was gonna be like, excuse me. I think Hunter's been very, very. I mean, I just I don't see the ideation to, first of all, even care from Joe Biden, and I don't see a plan of what we're trying to do. What is the end goal here? Just like in all the other forever wars we've been since in our whole lives, probably since before you were even born. I don't understand why this continues to be an option, that we have to go play world police and spend all our money while we've got all these issues at home, and it just is a blank check with a never-ending conflict.
So just to be upfront, I don't agree necessarily with a lot of our foreign conflicts. I believe that things like the Iraq invasion was something that wasn't in our best interest and probably made the U.S. Less safe overall after dumping billions of dollars. So I would agree with you on that. Again, I think, again, just as far as it goes with Ukraine, this is a conflict involving one of our greatest adversaries, one that's been actively hostile to the U.S. for a very long time, and ceding ground to that kind of adversary, I just don't believe is something that's going to benefit us.
I mean, I certainly agree that it like we're already in a situation where it's probably not going to end nicely. But it seems to me that you have a perspective more of that we can fix this, and I don't see that. I understand that if we can stop this, if we can get to a position where Russia has Crimea and Donbass, and then he's just chilling, then that would be great. But that sounds like a pie in the sky idea to me. Why would Putin not go all the way to nuclear war? Which is, kind of ties into why I already believe that we're in World War III.
Because as soon as he attacks a NATO country, he's in breach of the NATO contract.
But he's already lost. Who gives a shit? He's already
Sure,
lost the war. He's already lost what he wants. So I mean, what's
it would
next? They're gonna
mean the end of the country that he's fighting for. Sure, there's definitely the potential for a global conflict. It's one of the reasons why trusting Russia in the first place is a pretty bad idea. I don't necessarily think that it's easily fixed. I think it would take a pretty large movement in Russia that ousted someone like Putin in favor of someone who was less aggressive before Putin has the chance to further escalate the military conflict.
So you want regime change then?
Well,
we
I
see,
think
as Ziggs
if
brought
you're
up, how
trying
that
to
went in
avoid a
Libya.
global nuclear conflict, you're not going to get that with Putin at the reins.
I'm my position is that you're not going to get that where we are. You're not going to get that anyway. We're already too far in the hole to get what it seems like. And again, maybe I'm misunderstanding what your end goal is, but it seems like we're already too far down the hole to ever get there. So try to go to a goal.
Where would the place to stop have been in your eyes?
I think exactly where Biden picked up. I think there was a lot going on that with Trump working with Putin, trying to settle the seas. Not everything went great, and maybe he had some ideas and things that weren't in the best interest of Americans, but it seems like he was trying. So that would be hey, let's work this out instead of let's fight this out. No. And I mean, again, this is not my wheelhouse, so I could be talking. I am talking out of my ass. So if I'm wrong, please don't think that I'm big broing you here. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I just don't see there wasn't already aggression from Russia towards Ukraine at that period, and it seems like it was likely that was going to continue or escalate. So I just.
Okay, so then let me ask you a question. Let me ask you if Biden had done well, would it have been possible to maintain the not great but position that we were in under let's say 2019? In 2019, where the relations were between us and the relations between Ukraine and Russia, was it possible for Biden to maintain that and not not have Putin escalate? Obviously, it was Putin who invaded, not Biden. But do you think that is possible?
I don't think I'm qualified to answer that.
Okay, because I believe that I guess I'm not qualified to answer that either. But just to, just two bros talking, I think that it makes a lot of sense that if this is always what Putin has wanted, and being nice or allied with Putin helped stave off what was going on, I don't see why being more adversarial is the better option.
Being more adversarial as in sending munitions?
Yeah, as in backing up who they're fighting.
Well, I mean, we already had been doing that, right? When Trump was impeached, it was because he withheld munitions that were approved by Congress to go to Ukraine to fight off Russian-backed separatists.
Okay.
Like we had already been in the midst of sending these munitions to aid Ukraine in this conflict. So
we would. So you're saying we would have already been where we are, regardless of who was the president.
Most likely, yes.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but obviously I don't have a crystal ball and not my wheelhouse, so I'm not going to argue on shit that I don't know. Let's go with Zig. Says if Ukraine did not join NATO, all of that billions sent to Ukraine could go to help America, and Russia would just do other stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know what he means by other stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to do with that, Ziggs.
Currently,
yeah, I'm not sure. But Daniel says, well, guess as far as I'm concerned, we left the nest. Britain can fend for itself. Don't care. Not my country, not my royalty. I've got my own issues at home, and they can deal with their own. NATO definitely is the military and industrial complex. And Melted My Media says, and Congress confirmed the aid in 2014 when Biden threatened to withhold it. So let's let's attack this this bottom line idea that being non-interventionist. Obviously, it's not a matter of America going and singularly being involved in something. It has a lot to do with NATO and the UN. But do you think there is a reason to not for the American government to want to be like, hey, we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't be in this conflict at all. And I forget what the second question was, so let's just stick with that. Shout out to Cerberus. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
So I think it's kind of hard to back out based on what we've currently done within the country. I believe it was back in 2008 that there was an agreement made that Ukraine would eventually join NATO. And that's sort of when many of the anti-corruption efforts began within Ukraine. So maybe the time to not get involved was back in 2008 in suggesting that Ukraine could have joined NATO. But
wasn't that his red line? So why would that have been better back then? That was his red line, right? That not 1 inch eastward, no?
Yeah. And again, I don't necessarily know that was the best move that the U.S. could have made. But once that move had been made, I don't know how we back off of that position in a way that doesn't result in some sort of conflict.
You don't know how we can. You don't know how we can't back out. You don't know how we can back out that it doesn't turn into a conflict. But we're already in a conflict. So let's compare the conflict that would happen if we backed out versus the conflict that we're in right now. What do you think it would look like?
Had we not made that suggestion, there is the possibility that Ukraine could have remained an independent state. I believe that Russia had already made some moves towards other countries. My history is definitely a little fuzzy.
You know more than me, bro. You know more than me. That's all right. We up here struggling.
But like I said, it's possible that Ukraine could have remained an independent state, although the country had a number of issues in terms of not prosecuting corrupt politicians and businesses. And so I don't know how that would have impacted our international relations with them overall. There's the possibility that Russia still had an interest in retaking Ukraine too. So I don't. Again, it's sort of making a prediction into the dark, but
right. And it definitely is difficult to anybody who thinks that they have the answer of we should have done this on this day and we did that and that's where we messed up. Like, you don't know that. You don't know that. I know that you don't know that, and I don't know jack shit about a lot of this. Zig says, what if Ukraine joined BRICS? What is BRICS?
I'm not actually familiar with BRICS.
Yeah, what are we talking about, pal? So we have right, we got 2 people. All right, so yeah, we can. I want to go through some stuff with David, but then we'll circle back and I'll drop the link. Melted Mind Media said, "Great Patriotic War, Russia formed a Soviet Union." Oh, this is what they all call the World War II. That's only us. So, I mean, I think it seems to be like we are. This is not as deep of a disagreement as I thought we had. I mean, there's a big disagreement on perspective, but it seems like we generally have we generally have a similar idea that we're just looking from a different perspective. So because this is not my strongest area. And I'm definitely not going to let anybody gang up here, but I'm going to drop the link and let's see if anyone wants to come up and has anything to say about this. And then I want to, if you have the time, I would like to kind of show how this stuff is kind of related to the more street level culture war issues that we deal with. So we had 4 of you, 5 of you, 3 of you say that you would be willing to come up. So hit that link. It is pinned to the top. So I guess just in prep for where we go after this, what would you say are the top two issues that, again, if we're just simplifying left and right in the culture war, what is something that the right in the culture war is so wrong on? What do they get that's worse than anything? Just keep that. Yeah, just keep that in your mind. I want to come back to that, but that's where I want to drive this. So we have Daniel Cabrera back here. Thumbs up if you are ready, and come on up. Welcome, Daniel. How are you doing, brother?
I'm all right. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad. So what did you have for our boy David here?
Well, nothing much. My main thing is I get Ukraine's been an issue for forever. Russia's been an issue for forever. But here's the thing. We've got issues here at home. Border issues, drug issues, cartel issues, north, south of the border. Why am I stressed about them when, home needs some help? I'm sorry. We need to fix ourselves before we can go fixing anybody else.
I think that there's a lot of domestic issues that we should focus more on. Sure. I wish that there were more action in like trying to address some of the problems with our immigration system, so that we didn't have such a huge illegal immigrant issue. Like if we had reformed our legal immigration system to a degree that we're able to process people faster and know who is coming into the country, I think that frees up a lot of the border patrol to be able to focus on people who have bad intentions, who have already been kicked out of the country, and that way we are redirecting people towards legal ports of entries and dealing with legal cases, as opposed to just simply being unable to keep up with the mass influx of people at the border and not being able to do anything about it.
That's valid.
So I guess that's kind of similar to what I was trying to ask before, and I think it ties into the idea that we've made promises. But what do you? I think that there is an avenue for us to have the conversation of these are not the promises that I made. I never made a promise to do this, that, and the other. And as much as I understand that we are, our government is a unit, and the people may change, that the American government said this, and if the American government breaks their promise here, then what else are they going to break on? But there's so many things that just by being part of NATO, just by being part of the UN, that we could not have foreseen. And I think there is a reasonable way to make the argument that, like, okay, we need to reassess what's going on here. And so that some of those promises that, like, okay, we made those under different circumstances. And while we would love to help with that, it's not feasible right now. We got this problem, that problem, and that problem.
We've made that kind of decision since the very beginning. Lafayette, the Frenchman, was very notorious for helping us win our independence. And yet when France did call up, and after we had said, yeah, sure, we're going to show up and help you, we let France fall because we had stuff to do at home.
Okay.
We had made a promise. We had made a promise to help them with their revolution, and we backed out because, well, we've got crap going on here. I'm sorry, guys.
Shout out to Baby Up. Welcome to the party. So David, what do you think about that? About these are promises that were made. These are alliances. These are, all that kind of stuff. Why are we stuck to them forever?
So I don't know necessarily a ton of other alliances or promises that we made that we're super stuck to. I guess just in terms of
just the UN and NATO, right there.
Sure. Well, in terms of Ukraine and the US, I think that's something that being on the side of the conflict that we're in probably benefits us in the long term. I think that depending on what the other agreement is, there's room for determining what's best for us based on the current situation.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Shout out to Melted Mind Media. Welcome to the channel here. Another awesome YouTuber you guys should definitely go check out. Before we dive in, Melty, do you want to tell the people who are you, what do you do, and where can they find you?
I'm Melted Mind Media. I help you fight the media that melts your mind. And you can find me at Melted Mind Media on YouTube and on Twitter too.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. So what do you think about what our boy David here is saying?
So like the keeping promises with countries like that, like let's say we made an agreement with China back when they were getting invaded by Japan during World War II, that we were going to protect them forever. And then they switched to a communist country that has slavery. Would you still want to defend China even when we made that promise back when they were a super poor country?
I don't necessarily think so, no.
So, okay. So you don't think we should help like with other countries, like, and then if Ukraine is proven to be corrupt and everything as it said, would you want to help defend Ukraine if it is such a corrupt country?
Depends on what direction the country is headed, what kind of initiatives they've enacted in order to reduce corruption, what kind of benefit that could be of us or be to us in the future.
Did you know that in Ukraine, before Russia invaded, that the Ukrainian Nazi Party had almost 45% of the vote?
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
Really?
There's actually a big Nazi Party movement in Ukraine, and it came out like at the beginning of the Ukrainian war with Russia, that a lot of these soldiers were anti-Jewish people, and they wrote a lot of books about their experiences on the Ukrainian battlefield, and a lot of them got canceled for their anti-Jewish rhetoric that they preached.
Yeah, I'm surprised that that you never even heard. That was a big narrative of people like myself who maybe didn't know much about it, but it's like, oh, you know, I could see on Twitter, oh, they have the Nazi things on there, they're waving the flags, all that stuff. So that actually brings up you know, exactly what Dan is saying, that David should expand his sources from where he gets his news. So we don't know where David gets his news. So before we make assumptions, let's ask David. David, where do you get your news?
I'd say I get it from a range of sources, from AP News, Reuters, Forbes, to Fox News, CNN, NBC, Newsmax. I try to sample from a pretty wide range in order to understand where each faction's coming from.
I will give David that. I have seen his current events page on the Discord, and he does get his news sources from a lot of places. And he does post very relevant and good news facts in there. I will tell him that.
I appreciate that.
No problem.
And you know, that's why you know, we don't want to make assumptions. And the fact is that just because somebody has a different opinion doesn't mean that they're automatically wrong. And on a lot of things, you can have opinions that you know, where you disagree, and nobody's wrong.
I think
like,
there's a lot of you know, factions that exist within the U.S. where we're talking past each other on the same issues.
And that is a perfect. So actually, I'm gonna make sure we're not getting nobody's getting ganged up on. But I want to make sure we have a wide range of people here. So that brings us to exactly what I wanted to bridge the gap here with the discussion of the culture war issues. And do you think that, or let me say that I think that a lot of the reason that we do exactly what you just said, talk past each other, is because on the things that people kind of touch in their everyday lives, they are siloed into a very strong way of thinking without actually understanding the ins and outs. Can we all agree that on both sides, everybody's just kind of grabbing headlines and stuff like that?
Yeah,
well,
so there's a significant amount of that.
Most definitely. I think it goes back to that, what was it, echostatic bubble or whatever it was? Epistemic bubble?
Yeah, the epistemic bubble. So an epistemic bubble basically is just, you know, the whole thing about you are the 5 friends that you spend the most time with. News is going to be the same kind of thing. It's going to create the same kind of thing. So your epistemic bubble is just kind of what's around you, what are you reading, whatever, and it turns into an echo chamber when you close that off and you silo that, and any new information is automatically bad. So I think I think it's completely fair to say that the 3 of us are probably in a similar epistemic bubble, and that David is in a different one, but that none of us, you know, the fact that we are all here together right now, none of us are in an echo chamber. So Dan's asking if we could learn more from David on YouTube or Twitter. I don't know if you want to give out your. You said you didn't have a channel, but if you want to give out your Twitter.
Right. Well, I'll say this: if you want to interact with me personally, you can go on to the Indian Jesus's Discord channel. I'm not at this time putting my personal information out, just based on how quickly a number of people have resorted to death threats in recent interactions.
Gang, look at that. Look at that. I love that. Thank you. So Steve is saying, and I definitely second that. Steve is saying the Ukrainian Nazis is such a weak argument. Do you think that every soldier we sent to the Pacific Theater in Europe during World War II was a virtuous, non-racist person? Nonsense. The draft sent everyone. So, Melty, since you brought that up, what's your response to this?
Let me read it again.
So the Ukrainian Nazi is such a weak argument. Do you think that every soldier we sent to the Pacific Theater in Europe during World War II was a virtuous, non-racist person? It's nonsense. The draft sent everyone over.
Yes, but it's not about it's not about Ukrainian soldiers. It's about like if let's say like not all Germans were Nazis, but you would definitely want to they were a majority party of the holder. They controlled the government. And at the time, with the voting system, if Russia didn't invade, then the Nazi party of Ukraine would have had control of Ukraine.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, because it's not necessarily to say that, oh, there is one Nazi on the Ukrainian army, therefore they're all bad. It's that there was a culture of this. There was an acceptance of this. At any time, I'm quite certain that if you are flying a swastika tattoo or an Iron Cross or something, that people in the American military are not going to be down with that.
Well, hold on. Let me pose a question, because I fumbled and hit a button like a twit. Is this a current thing, or is this like a 60 years ago thing?
Nope. Right now.
Okay. Well, then I guess the KKK argument I was about to make goes out the window.
Well, Steve is right there with you. Said we had card-carrying Klansmen and white supremacists fighting in World War II. Not a lot, but we had a bunch of racists over there. So,
yeah. I mean, it goes even further than that. I mean, if you even look at some of the ships at Pearl Harbor, they were segregated ships. They were racists on the ships in Pearl Harbor, along with the black people that went down with them. I mean, it's just the way it was.
I'm just curious. Do you mind linking something about that 45% Nazi figure?
Yeah, let me find it and I'll send it to you.
Okay.
Well, just drop it in the chat. We can we'll get it together.
Yeah, I gotcha.
The U.S. and NATO is in a proxy war with Russia. Of course. And unless David, do you disagree?
I think that's generally pretty accurate.
Okay. And then Kerm says, wasn't the Azov battalion or whatever only like 2,000 people? Aren't they all dead by now? That I do not know. But I think it's spelled differently, but the Azov battalion, that's what Melty was talking about. That's where there was a huge number of accepted racism. But but Steve, you're saying that it's a weak argument, but I don't understand how that weakens the argument at all. That we don't need to be going over to help people that are not good people.
Well, I think that the movements towards decorrupting the country have been going on for quite a while, and so that's it may be that they were not prepared to it was pretty definite that they were not prepared to join NATO at the time that this conflict began. Now, what their sentiment is going to be following this conflict, it's kind of hard to say. It may be that once a ceasefire, a peace treaty has been established, we can look at what the demographics are and the general sentiment of the country are at the time, and make decisions about them joining us at that point.
All right.
Go
ahead.
I was going to say that might be one way I might be, somewhat not agreeing to, but okay with us jumping in and at least taking some part in it, is if they wanted to do peace treaties or peace talks, man, having a central party there is, needed. I mean, have 4 or 5 countries there just to sit down and go, okay, is this truly equal for both people? But I could see us being, I could see myself being okay with us being involved in at least peace talks and stuff like that.
All right, so let's see what we got here. So real quick, Dan Jensen says most countries do not incorporate Nazis into their armed forces. Let's just tie a bow on this here. Steve says, here's my point. Like claiming we are fighting Nazis doesn't justify the invasion. We had racist and very bad people fighting on our own side over in World War II. Right, but that's not the argument. We're not saying that we should go over there because there's Nazis. We're saying for all the other reasons we should not be going over there. On top of that, they're a bunch of Nazis.
I did link that in chat, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's the correct one.
Yep. All right, so let's take a look at that here. All righty. Oh, wrong button. So this is from NBC News. Ukraine's Nazi problem is real, even if Putin's denazification claim isn't. Not acknowledging this threat means that little is being done to guard against it. We got our boys here. Look at that. Oh, yeah. The Azov Battalion. All right. So, yeah, Ukrainian veterans of the Azov Battalion in 2020. So, Alan Rip says, of the many...
Can you go back to that headline for just a second? Banned from receiving U.S.
Here?
Down at the bottom. U.S. aid attended a rally in Kyiv in March 14, 2020. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we hadn't sent them aid prior to the invasion, presumptively.
So, so Alan Rip tells us
we sent them aid in 2014.
The Azov Battalion.
They still had the problem in 2014 when we were sending them aid. When Joe Biden threatened the withdrawal aid, they still had the same Nazi party that they had now. It's still a major problem.
Okay. I mean, can we continue on the article? Just I want to see what it says about how prevalent this was.
Okay, so the article reads, of the many distortions manufactured by Russia's President Vladimir Putin to justify Russia's assault on Ukraine, perhaps the most bizarre is his claim that the action was taken to denazify the country and its leadership. In making his case for entering his neighbor's territory with armored tanks and fighter jets, Putin has stated that the move was undertaken to, quote, protect people who have been, quote, subjected to bully and genocide, and that Russia will, quote, will strive for the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine. On its face, Putin's smear is absurd, not least because Ukrainian President Zelensky is, I knew it was with a Y. It's two Y's, but I changed the spelling. I changed the spelling because you used an I, and I was like, oh, am I spelling it wrong? But we both got it. All right, so President Zelensky is Jewish and has said that the members of his family were killed during World War II. There's also no evidence of recent mass killings or ethnic purges taking place in Ukraine. Moreover, labeling enemies Nazis is a common political ploy in Russia, especially from leaders who favor disinformation campaigns and want to stir up feelings of national vengeance against World War II foe just to justify conquest. But this is kind of going on the same notion that this is the reason. And that's not the argument that we're making. So this is propaganda.
That might have been the wrong one. My bad. Here, I'll look for it again.
So on the eve of World War II, Ukraine was one of the largest Jewish communities in Europe, estimated 2.7 million. Long record of anti-Semitism by the end. Yeah, I don't know if this is helping us, bro.
Yeah,
I don't know if this is helping us, bro.
Let me look. Let me look again. Let me find the right one.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not even that's kind of derailed us a little bit, because that the question is, why do we have to be involved? And the answer was never.
It was mentioned that like 45% of Ukraine supported the Nazi party, and that's the kind of claim that I'm a little hung up on.
Right. So and so let's say the number doesn't matter. There's a bunch of Nazis in the Ukrainian army. That's neither here nor there. The reason, the question that I'm most concerned about is why we need to be involved. Why is it that we can't come to the table with somebody, with whoever, and be like, look, I know that we have these promises, these things in place, but this is no longer part of what was intended. This is no longer something that is beneficial to us. We're just handing out money to you. What is the benefit here?
Well, so we spent a lot of time and effort in Ukraine trying to enact some form of regime change that it removed Russian backers that were known to be corrupt, defending corrupt politicians, avoiding taxation, that sort of thing. And so we were trying to make some sort of progress there, and I guess it sends a pretty gross message to say, okay, well, if we're trying to do this with a territory that you desire, Mr. Putin, and you go on the offensive, then we're just going to back out, right? Like, I feel like that it would probably embolden him in future conflicts.
Sure, but I'm not saying necessarily that it's. Well, I mean, I guess that's a good point. What do you guys have to say about that?
I'm sorry, I'm reading. What did he say? I'm so sorry.
It's just it looks bad if we are saying that, hey, Putin, don't do this, but if you do, we're just gonna not do anything about it.
If we don't do anything that's bad, I would agree. But we can do tariffs. We can do we can just stop trading with them. There's a lot of things we could do that would hurt the Russian economy.
Right,
besides sending money over to Ukraine.
But I guess we've done a lot of that too, right? There were sanctions that were enacted on Russia following 2016, and probably quite a few prior to that as well. And then after the invasion, we added a large number of other sanctions, right? Not accepting oil from them being one of the most consequential. So there's the threat and the effect of sanctions and tariffs that can influence the behavior of Russia, but so far it doesn't seem like it's prevented anything.
But I think an argument could also be made to the fact that, how long did we keep up that lack of buying oil from them? And how much of that was also due to us not producing our own oil here in country?
Well, I think we have been producing oil here.
No, did you say we have? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Well, we produced a smaller amount. We actually stopped fracking when Biden got into office. That's why all the gas prices have skyrocketed, because
isn't fracking for natural gas, not necessarily
oil? Well, we also closed the oil pipeline. Like, there's a lot of stuff that happened that made gas prices go up.
Well, gas prices went up largely because we stopped getting oil from Russia. Right? That was a large source for us and for a lot of our allies internationally.
So what about what Dan Jensen's saying here? Not sticking up to the Minsk Accord is a very good reason to invade. What do you guys think about that? I'm not not super familiar.
I believe that is the non-expansion of NATO. Like I said, I think that making a declarative statement that Ukraine would someday join NATO maybe wasn't in the best interest of the U.S. Or for NATO. Had Ukraine remained a completely independent state, then that maybe was good for us. Ukraine was a super corrupt country and has become less so, however, because of the carrot that is NATO. So it's like, okay,
fair enough. Look, we're not looking. If you're here looking for a blood-soaked fest, that's certainly not what we are here to do. So we are going through this in good faith as possible. And I
this isn't IBS.
No, that's what happens to you in the bathroom, sir.
Yeah.
Zig says, Zig says, so why did NATO go in Ukraine when Putin said he would not allow it? USA, NATO, and Ukraine cannot be surprised by the invasion and is to blame. Sounds like that. Sounds like you would agree with that, David, no? So if NATO is expanding when Putin said, sure, I'm not going to allow that, and then we expand, that would be part of a reason to say that even though Putin was the one that invaded, that has a lot to do with what America did.
Sure. Like I said, I think that's about the point in history that I think we could have taken a wrong turn. I'm not completely prepared to say that it absolutely was wrong for us to try to become an ally with Ukraine, but I think that there were other options on the table at that time that could have probably led to a better outcome.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And yeah, shout out to Martian Overlord. Welcome to the party. Seems to be on this the same kick, which is again why I keep bringing this up. I understand that we have alliances, we have promises that are made, but at what point are we allowed to be like, okay, let's just come to the table and see if we can update this? Because this is not working out for us. This is exactly what the leaving the Paris Accords was about. Was that, okay, we signed this thing, but like Trump was like, I didn't sign that shit, and it's not helping America, so I'm not about it. Why is it, and whether you agree or disagree with that action, why is it not something that we can, why is it not a conversation that we can have before it's just decided, all right, we're sending billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars over there?
I mean, it could be said we're doing our part just by taking in all their immigrants as much as we can anyway. I mean, no offense to them. They kind of dug their own grave on it, but look at like New York. Kids are losing out on soccer space.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, David, you did mention that was a part of the issue, but this is I think where it comes down, where the rubber meets the road, is that if there are conflicting issues, then the resources are finite, and especially when it comes to money, we can either spend money at home or, well, we promise that if something happens on the other side of the world that we're going to help. It doesn't matter that there's immigrants pouring over the border. It doesn't matter that there's fentanyl pouring over the border. It doesn't matter that there's towns that are failing. It doesn't matter that roads can't be fixed. It doesn't matter that kids aren't learning math and reading. We have to go and save the world. This is the I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the people who are expressing this kind of sentiment of we have stuff going on here, that seems to be what the issue is that, hey, even if somebody from a different generation made a promise, I want to have a say here.
I think that I would agree more if there were traction on actually solving some of those issues domestically. Which okay. I think that.
So that's a perfect segue. Thank you, David. So let's go back to the culture war question that I had asked you. So again, we're simplifying things. Obviously, it is much more complex than left and right, but just for the sake of conversation, we're talking the culture war. So we're going to talk left and right, left being more woke and stuff like that. And then, I mean, you guys get it. So David, if you had to pick the one thing that conservatives do the worst when it comes to the culture war, what do you think that would be?
Sorry, I don't focus culture war all too often. Mind rattling off like a 5.
Okay, so we got abortion, we got the trans stuff, we've got cancel culture, and how about
religion's always on there.
Sure, let's throw religion in there, and that actually works. That's a good one too, because you guys know I'm an atheist. So we have trans stuff, abortion. I forgot what I said already. Trans stuff, abortion, religion, and guns.
Cancel culture.
Guns.
Cancel culture and guns. Oh, guns. Yeah, definitely.
So what do you think that conservatives are the worst on when it comes to the culture war out of those 4 issues? Abortion, trans issues, guns, or
abortion.
Culture?
Yeah, I would say probably abortion is where I would say that their general position is probably the worst. But I think there's also some blame on the left side because they try to minimize the problem as conservatives don't want women to be in charge of their own healthcare decisions, which gets the conversation nowhere and is a pretty gross straw man as well. I like to bring up and Lutch and I have argued on it more than once. I like to sit down and say, it's because people don't want to draw that line at where life is. If the doctor can take a life, why is it okay for like a 18-year-old or 21-year-old to get drunk, kill a pregnant woman who's, right under the age that you got for abortion? Let's put abortion at 3 months. He hits and kills a woman who's 2 months pregnant. Why does he go down for a double murder and reckless driving? The baby's not alive for the doctor's purposes. Why is it alive for the government's? Mm-hmm.
So let's back up. Where, David, what do you think is the appropriate stopping point for abortion? Do you think it, first trimester, 6 weeks, 20 weeks? Is it viability? Is it consciousness? Where do you think that line is?
I think that's a really complicated question to answer just based upon the number of situations that can occur. Where I personally stand, I believe that for any sort of medical purpose, up until the due date is appropriate. Like if you find out within like 5 days of the birth date that the fetus is going to have some sort of horrible genetic condition, you should have that right to abort that pregnancy. As a general matter, I think Destiny, although I don't agree that it's necessarily the right position, I think he's got the best compromise position, being that when parts of the brain have formed to allow that fetus to have cognitive experiences, then that's probably about the right compromise position to have, and therefore only having like medically necessary abortions thereafter. I guess we'll start with that. Just see.
Okay. So Melty, you want to go?
So like you talk about brain, like so abortion's a subject I would say that I've gotten actually more conservative on, because I used to say like
shit me.
I used to think like even
Hey guys, I'm gonna stick around. Give me 1 second. I gotta run in my car and grab my portable charger.
We got some other people waiting, so I'm gonna drop you out.
Then I will drop out. Yeah.
Any last words for the people? Any last words for David?
No, I'd love to continue this, and I'm going to continue listening. If anybody wants to continue jumping along with me, find me on the Indian Jesus Discord server.
Link in bio and the description. Thank you so much, Dan.
Y'all.
You can find us all there.
All of us. Yep. And let's bring up who is here first. Trey, cam up, bro. We got M169 in the building. Welcome. What is going on?
Oh,
We cannot.
We've got an echo on your end as well.
Yeah, mute your YouTube stream.
All right, you see if you can figure that out. I'll drop you down, but I won't kick you. So we'll see if out. And let's bring up Trey. Welcome, sir. Are you driving right now, bro? That ain't safe.
Well, no, I'm technically the passenger. Can you hear me?
Technically.
Yeah. Yep. How's it going? What do you what you got for us?
Nothing, man. I heard culture warring. You know me. I like to piss off the right.
You like to? Oh, where is it? Oh, okay. You like to piss off the right, do you? So it sounds like the crux of the issue is personhood. When does a person become a person? I don't like this. Sorry,
or at least when do we define a life as deserving of rights?
Right. So you mentioned Destiny's position, and I'm quite familiar because we covered not the entire podcast that he did with whatever, but the main portion of that. And then we're very familiar. And so if anybody is not, Destiny's position is basically the line is consciousness. So if there is something that it is like to be you, then you are endowed with personhood rights. But if you cannot experience that, which according to doctor science, whatever, that happens around 20 to 24 weeks. So he says, to be safe, got it at 20 weeks. And before that it is not a person. And so is that pretty much your position, David?
Like I said, I think that's the best compromise position. Now, where I think that it's maybe a little bit off is just in terms of the kind of rights that we afford other conscious creatures, namely like livestock. We cut those lives very short after they have established their own relationships of some sort. And so it's hard for me personally, to give a poorly conscious fetus more rights than we give livestock.
Okay. Trey, you want to piss me off? Go ahead and piss me the fuck off.
I I think anything before like 5 months is cool with me personally.
5 months.
Yeah,
That's about 20 weeks.
So what happens at 5 weeks?
No, I didn't say 5 weeks. I'm sorry if you heard 5 weeks. I said 5 months.
Oh, 5 months. I misspoke. I misspoke. Yeah, 5 months. What happens at 5 months?
I just think at that point you kind of you let this ball roll downhill too long to finally be like, hey, I don't want it. That's just my personal opinion. I don't have like any medical reasons why. I just feel like by 5-6 months, like this baby is pretty much almost here, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's 34 weeks. The baby is considered healthy enough to be birthed.
Right.
So, I mean, you're pretty much almost to the finish line to a certain degree that it's a little too late for me to think that you should be able to abort it.
So, Trey, can I ask you something? So, let's say that you had this pregnancy with, 2 consenting partners, and at 19 weeks, they decide we are not going to be together, and therefore this future baby is not going to have both parents within the household. And we know that tends to result in really poor economic outcomes, as well as educational outcomes, nutritional outcomes, that sort of thing. At 21 weeks, after 2 weeks of dealing with that sort of reckoning of the end of a relationship, do you think that there's a moral justification to end the fetus at that point?
Not necessarily, and I guess speaking from my own personal life, because I mean I have kids by different women, and to a degree, at the end of the day, we all knew what time it was. Like, we all knew that that these are things that can happen. Like, we can break up, but I mean, to each his own. I can't personally be like it's moral or immoral, but that's why, again, I say at a certain point, you let this ball roll downhill so far to the point where it's like I don't think it should be right for you to be able to say, nah, I'm cool, I don't want the baby no more. But I mean, at the end of the day, you kind of just have to go off what's best for you and your situation. Now, if together you feel like y'all two can do this, and you feel like one is just gonna completely bail and not be there at all, then I might be okay with it. But I mean, at the end of the day, you have to look at your life and what's best, and see if that is going to be like a thing that you can handle by yourself or not. So I think that kind of gets into like the personal of it.
So Melty, where are you on the whole abortion issue?
So I this is something I've gotten way more conservative on, and it was actually during the Destiny show where I actually became more conservative on it, because the argument the guest gave to Destiny, and it talks about this. I found the article too. Actually, not the right one. Damn it! But it's about this boy named Michael, who was born without a brainstem, and he has no true cognitive ability. He can only hear. He can't see, and he can't produce thought.
Whoa.
But he lived to be. I think he's 5 right now. And would you say, David, that he doesn't deserve a life because he doesn't have cognitive ability?
Let's stick more precisely with personhood rights.
Okay. So
the example of the 5-year-old boy who doesn't have a conscious experience, but he can hear and see. Does that boy get personhood rights?
I think it is within the rights of his caretakers to maintain that person's life. I don't necessarily know that there is something being lost if that person or that individual were euthanized. If they are incapable of feeling and responding, then I don't see what is lost if that person isn't.
So it's okay to kill them?
Sure, yes.
Well, okay.
Oh, that's a rough one, because you've got some of your rights you have to verbally assert. So that's a rough one.
Shout out to Tony. Welcome, Tony Baloney, to the party. Let's see what Tony says. Everyone should have been more conservative on the abortion issue as soon as they claim that it's acceptable to ban guns but not abortion, because abortion saves lives. You mean gun saves lives. But if that's what you meant, I'm 100% with you. But let's before we get into the weeds, I want to make sure we got all our opinions. So let's go to M169. What are your opinions on abortion? Where do we draw that line of where somebody gets personhood rights?
Can you hear me this time?
Yes,
Great.
we can hear you.
Okay.
And there's no echo. Beautiful.
Okay, great. Personhood rights.
So like when is it okay to have an abortion, if at all? Or when is it not okay to have abortion, if it ever is, in your mind?
I think as rarely as possible. It's, I kind of made me jump in here was the discussion that we were having a little bit earlier today on the Discord about this 13-year-old who's now a mother, which I just find insane. I don't believe that a young child like that, I mean, that was just a cascade of errors from the get-go that was from that news story that you shared.
Yeah, so really quickly, if anybody didn't see, basically there was a 12 or 13-year-old girl who was SA'd, and she lived in a state where abortion was made illegal, and so she
But was it illegal? Had her mother known? Had they known about? Because I listened to that article.
What was because she
were
found out
exceptions for that. Yeah, she found out too late. That was part of the problem.
Right. So being it was too late for her to legally have that abortion. And so
in
now
that state, yes.
they framed it as she's going to school on her first day as a mother to just give you a little bit of an emotional kick to it. So that's a perfect that's a great example to bring up. So I would okay. So no, Tony does say abortion saves lives. I don't know how killing people saves lives, but
that's what they say.
It's the old argument. It's that old ridiculous argument that people, like to throw out. What about ectopic pregnancies? What about non-viable pregnancies? Without the knowledge of the fact that, to get around the Hippocratic Oath, we have reclassified those as procedures, not abortions.
It's true. They don't classify them as that. A ectopic pregnancy is not considered an abortion at all.
Well, but there have been
because what's going to
women who
happen
have
is
been
that baby's going to grow in
having-
that fallopian tube and it's going to burst and they're both going to die.
Right, but
That's
there
what's
have
gonna
been
happen.
women who have had to wait until that developing fetus no longer was alive before a procedure or abortion was performed to remove that fetus.
In the case of ectopic pregnancies, within the first couple of weeks, it's not anything. It's literally basically a flush.
What do you mean?
It's like a saline flush. They flush
You mean
the area.
itself?
Yes, the procedure itself is basically a flush. They flush the uterus with saline, so that way it detaches from the wall and it comes right on out.
Do you know what a ectopic pregnancy is?
That is one of the ones. It's egg caught in the fallopian tube.
Yes, it's caught in the fallopian tube. It doesn't follow. It doesn't travel down into the uterus.
I might have the way they fix the ectopic pregnancy wrong, but it's basically considered a procedure. They know it pretty quickly.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Generally speaking, yeah.
So Tony's saying, he does say abortion saves lives. He said, that said, it's a morally extremely gray area. Completely agreed. You can't make a clean call either way in the event that the mother would actually be negatively impacted, or in the case of something bad happening, which is exactly why we need. Yeah, it's not a like a negative right. Which is exactly why we need to have even if it is somewhat arbitrary, we have to have a line as to the same way we have an arbitrary line as to when adulthood is, we have to have a line as to where personhood is. And
I agree.
I view it in two different paradigms, let's say. I view it in a moral paradigm, and then I view it in a legal paradigm. So when it comes to abortion, morally, I believe that, I don't believe, I know that upon conception, unique DNA is created. And so if we have unique human DNA, then in my eyes, that is a human life. And so at any point, if that human life is ended, that is killing a person. True. Now, when it comes to the legal aspect, I feel like Roe v. Wade was the best we were going to get. I could not for the life of me understand why people wanted to repeal that, thinking that they would just outlaw abortions nationwide. Like that was never going to happen. And so now you just have a mismatch of states where, you have situations like this little girl, and then you have states like California where you're going to have way more late-term abortions than you ever would have under Roe v. Wade. And so this ties into my entire point here of why these street level culture war issues are so important is because we need to be able to work with each other on the smaller issues. And people, when it comes to things like wars and foreign aid and stuff like that, people don't necessarily have the same type of personal experience with it. And in order to care about things that do actually matter, we have to meet people where they are, and we have to have people start to be able to have an answer for this. I mean, I'm not finger wagging, but we should all have an answer like that. When somebody asks you, when does personhood begin? It should be conception or viability, or we should know this. And so the fact that we're having trouble with it means that we're not grappling with the issue itself in a way that is moving us forward as a country. And if we can't even discuss the issues that we can touch, that we can see, that we can feel, then the more seemingly nebulous issues are going to be even another degree harder to talk about. What do you guys think about that?
I fully agree. I mean, it's, like I say, it's drawing that line. Where is life? Or as you put it, where is your personhood rights begin? You've got to draw that line. Without that line, that is why I'm intrinsically against it, because that's a rule for me and not for thee type place.
Yep. Well said. So let's go back to Tony. So sorry, go ahead.
No, I can agree with Daniel. Listen, I'd like them. The issue of I think you're right, saying about drawing a line on personhood, because you're correct. Yes, when sperm and egg meet, a unique life is started. There's no denying that, and
I agree with that. And
trying to wrap it up into other language that it's not really that thing doesn't really help anything. Right. At the same time, it's not viable before a certain point. It just isn't.
Like, what, 5 years old?
No, not 5 years old.
I mean, leave a 2-year-old baby on a table and walk out and see what happens. But David, what were you going to say?
Bad things will happen.
Sorry, if you were.
So I think like with the whole, you're right. How anybody thought, how any conservative thought, we're just going to end Roe v. Wade, and that's just going to end it. That was stupid. Stupid. It really was stupid. As stupid as saying that it's okay in the 9th month, that terminating that pregnancy when there's no medical reason to do so, you are killing a baby.
But it's my mental
health. That if you let that natural process go forward, that's what you're doing. Right. That's, to me, it's just as mind-boggling of an extreme. Mm-hmm. The whole I don't understand how we got past the whole safe, legal, and rare aspect. I don't understand how we got past that. Yeah. And I do kind of blame the extreme right. I do remember the days of abortion clinic bombings, that stuff did happen.
Yep. Long-time viewers will remember we had one of my first guests was somebody who was who's liberal now, but used to be one of those people who would go and protest these abortion clinics. David, you were going to say something?
Oh, what I was going to say is that I think that more liberals need to be accepting of the fact that there is a life at conception, right? If we would consider like a tree to be alive, then you can't say that a developing fetus is not also in some way, shape, or form a life. I think that by denying that, I think it gives a lot of fuel to the conservative position, or at least I should say that the conservative faction, which is moving towards if nothing else, if not at conception, at the first heartbeat, or first 6 months, or sorry, 6 weeks. But yeah, I think that a lot of the conversation needs to be around when that right is provided to the developing life, and as far as like the heartbeat or conception arguments in favor of banning abortion at those stages, it's hard for me to see any way to reason your way there without invoking religion and some conception.
How do you mean invoking religion?
Like, because this is
I say life begins at conception, and I do not believe in God.
Right. If you believe that it's a life and is human because it has DNA and therefore deserves rights at that point, I believe that's pretty firmly rooted in a belief that all human life is something that is worth protection because it's by God's design. Whereas I think when you start focusing on that development process and the bringing into the world a cognitive, conscious thing, I think that's where the conversation really ought to be, and I think if you are not looking at that part of it, that it's probably coming from some sort of spiritual sentiment at the very least.
But it's not at all for me. It's absolutely just the scientific notion that unique DNA is valuable because it is human.
Why is unique DNA valuable?
Because I don't understand the question. I axiomatically believe that a human has value. So if you are a being that has DNA that is human, then you have value.
Well, but why specifically human DNA? Because
I'm a human.
I'm just curious.
If I was a dog, I'd be right there fighting about a dog abortion. If I was a horse, I'd be right there fighting about Daniel.
Because I also do eat meat.
Oh no, I fully agree with you, David. Good point.
I bet you do eat meat.
Oh.
Got him. Sorry. Well, let's go Daniel and then Melton.
But I think it boils down to the ultimate form of tribalism. That's exactly what it is. Humans are our tribe. That's exactly why a human means more than, don't get me wrong, I'm an animal lover too, but my daughter means more to me than my cat, my dog, any of that shit. Yeah. Right. My parents mean more to me
than some random stranger of human.
Yes, but out of morality, I'm not going to kill some random dog on the street, just like I'm not going to kill a random ass human.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the party, Edmundo. Edmundo says, I think abortion should be illegal. Make people take sex more seriously and using protection and birth control. I agree with you, Edmundo. But to think that you can legislate this is precisely the same logic of liberals saying that we should ban guns because they kill people. That's precisely the same logic. Yeah. So yeah, we should never do it, but that doesn't mean that making it illegal helps that situation. Matthew,
we also tried banning alcohol once upon a time. How well did that work out for us? It didn't work at all.
Well, I mean, if you're in the mob, pretty well, but other than that, no.
It worked out great for them.
But so what I was gonna say is I think I've really come to the point where I think all abortion, like, it's hard to make it, obviously it's hard to legislate it and make it illegal, but I believe all abortion is a morally wrong thing to do. Where it really hurts, like where it really like struggles with me is like during SA and like those things, like that's, and especially when someone's so young. But where I feel about it is like, if you believe in life starts at conception, then the person or the baby in the womb was not the one that decided to do the SA. And so they are being punished for that. They're being killed for what the other person did in the crime. And obviously that person should be punished too, that committed the SA. But it's hard for me to say that an abortion should happen because of SA, because the child that is in the womb is being punished for it.
Well, let me play off of that. Because, you sit down and let's say you make the exception for the SA argument. Somebody's been SA'd, you can have the abortion. What happens when, people end up, I don't want to have the pregnancy or whatever else, and start saying, just claim.
Oh, he froze. But real quick, I think Trey's got to drop out. Any last words before you leave us, brother? You're muted.
No real last words. I think that we'll never just come to a real conclusion on this, just because, like everybody said, it's so great that
defeatism.
It's just too great to really just set in stone any one ideology about it. So I think,
we had Roe v. Wade for 50 years.
And that pissed off one half of the country. So at the end of the day,
what's a good compromise when both sides are pissed off?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, true enough. But I'll definitely holler at y'all in Discord. I gotta go do dad things, so I'll holler at y'all, man.
See you, Trey.
All right, brother. Thank you so much for stopping by, and we will see you around. So let's grab a couple of these comments. I'm not used to having so much going on, but let's grab some of these comments. Tony Badoni says, not ban at heartbeat, but you need a board decision. It should no longer be unilaterally your call at that point. And that's not religious. That's biological. Yeah, I think that wherever you draw the line, it doesn't need to be a religious decision or a spiritual decision, or we have Ziggs over here saying it's easy for us men to speak about this. First of all, can you respect the lady on the panel? Secondly, do you have an issue speaking about murder because you're not the one being murdered? So if we see it exactly the same way, then maybe you don't see it that way. But this is why people have every right to speak about any issue.
What if like this is what if this was a consensual thing between a man and a woman, and then they have a problem and they break up, and it's 6 months into the relationship, and the dude's like, no, I want the baby and I will take care of it, but the woman's like, no, I don't want to have this baby no more. Bye.
He's fucked.
Yeah, he can't. He can't bear it.
He is.
And but he wants. That's his kid. It is also his kid.
No. Well,
I saw a video. I saw a video of a gentleman, a young man, begging, absolutely screaming and crying and begging, please don't do this. I'll take care of the baby.
That's horrible.
I want my child. And he was absolutely heartbroken over it. But because of the way things stood, it was her body, her choice. Totally.
So, David, on that specific, if that's the specific scenario where, it's a healthy pregnancy, she simply does not want to either go through the pregnancy, she doesn't want to raise the child, she just doesn't want the child. It's not a medical issue. She doesn't want the child. But the father's saying, I will take care of it. You don't have to you can go on hot girl summer, do whatever. It's just going to be me taking care of the baby. Should that woman be allowed to all the way up to 9 months, or would you say that she has the right only up until whenever? Or do you think that should be, hey, no, this child has a guardian here willing to take care of it, and so you gotta go with that?
So this is where I generally agree that the best compromise position is around like the 20 to 24 week period. If she's beyond that, because of both personal and religious convictions, there are a lot of reasons why someone would feel very strongly about that about that pregnancy being carried to term. prior to that period, though, I think that I would strongly be on the side of the woman in terms of recognizing the strain on their body, as well as the complications of childbirth. Even if it's a healthy, normal childbirth, tends to cause extreme discomfort and pain, to say the least.
And so I guess that kind of answers what Dan is asking here. Like, what do you answer people that say fetus does not have the right to use another person's body? It sounds like you would agree that the fetus does not have a right to the mother's body. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong.
I would say that the woman has the right to a degree of consent about how her body is used.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But, we live in a universe and a world and, forgive me, a society where actions have consequences. You drink, you drive, you lose. You go to jail. You get fucking tickets. You end up with, an interlock on your car. You bone, you take a risk. If you don't take plan B, you don't decide to go off. Plan B is a next day thing. It's not like you do that night. That's something you go out and you get afterwards.
Don't ask me how I know.
You've got this choice. You've got that option. So why do you need to sit down and wait for this life to be created? You had sex. Why don't you just take care of your stuff before it becomes an issue?
I guess I look at it in terms of what is going on with that procedure, and therefore also what is lost in performing it. So if there is a developing fetus that cannot really experience pain, or if it does experience pain to some degree, cannot make sense of it, and I believe leading up to most abortion procedures, there's also either some sort of numbing agent or something to that effect. Once that abortion procedure is complete, there's nothing there to experience at that point. And so if it never did and doesn't thereafter, what's the consequence of that?
Even if the life doesn't know that it's being lost, it is still being lost. So that is the loss.
Sure, but that's known to the external observers, but not to the thing itself.
Sure, but that doesn't make it any less of a loss.
If you're killed in your sleep, you don't know it happened,
took
but
the words right out of my mouth.
Killed in
Sure,
your sleep.
but I had a life prior, and there are individuals who are aware of my existence, who I have a relationship with, who would also feel the impact of that.
So let's say you didn't. Let's say you were born to you're Tarzan. You're born to the wolves, and nobody knows that you exist. You've been brought up by wolves. Obviously, a ridiculous hypothetical, but that is how we take these things out of the weeds of the actual scenario. So you're born, and you don't know anybody. All you know is wolves, and then you're sleeping. Can the I don't know, the wolf that doesn't like you can come and kill you because nobody is going to be aware of it, and you're not going to be aware of it because you're a
random hunter.
Or a hunter. There you go.
Sure. So in that case, while I think that the experience that baby would feel would be absolutely horrible and tragic, it also sounds very natural. That is what countless animals experience in the wild on a regular basis, right? Like a baby turtle is hatched from the egg and on its way to the ocean gets snatched up and eaten by a bird, right?
I don't understand. How does that connect?
Well, all we're doing is changing the context from animals to humans, right? And so we're saying
no, because no. I was using the wolves because you're saying that that people have awareness of who you are, and you had experiences before that. So I'm saying if you didn't have those experiences and nobody was aware of you, then would it be okay to kill you in your sleep?
To kill you in your sleep?
Yeah, because you're not aware of it and nobody else is aware of it.
If it did not inflict a lot of pain on that freshborn baby, then yeah, probably it doesn't have a very significant moral weight.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, hey, look, we all have, I completely disagree with that, but we're all free to have our own opinions. I do want to touch on before we wrap up. Just because it's in the thumbnail and I hate clickbait, I do feel like we need to at least touch on the trans thing a little bit. Any last words on abortion?
No, I'm good.
All right, let's see what we got in comments before we move on. Kerm said, I would like to point out that non-medical late-term abortions don't happen is a dubious claim at best. A lot of clinics don't have records of this stuff, and tons don't have a reason listed. Yeah, I did a video just a couple weeks ago on a doctor that considers pregnancy in and of itself a life-threatening condition for the mother. And so because you are pregnant, you have a life-threatening condition, and that the pregnancy itself is the reason for the abortion. And that talk about semantic obfuscation.
Some people's kids, I swear.
Tony says, I'm all for plan B. Women have a window. But yeah, as a society, let's just continue the soft bigotry of low expectations. It's been working out great for everyone so far. It's a little bit... The sarcasm is a little too subtle for me to know exactly what you're saying. I can see you're being sarcastic. I don't know exactly what you mean. And finally, on abortion, Zig says, if you want to ban abortions, then the foster care system should be much better and able to take care of orphans. Not the best at the moment. Completely agreed.
True, because the whole concept and idea of adoption seems to have just gotten lost in the weeds.
Yeah.
Nobody ever even discusses it anymore. It's insanely expensive to adopt a child, but it's real cheap to walk into that abortion clinic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
It's hard.
Is orphaning your child illegal?
Orphaning your child?
Yeah,
it depends on where you are. There are states.
Or you mean like leaving it at a fire station or something?
Well, yeah.
Yes. Safe haven laws.
So
they set up places where if a mother is overwhelmed and she's doing this on her own and she can't cope, you can safely leave your baby at a fire station or a hospital so that nothing bad happens to that infant and they can be adopted out. Yes.
I'm going to keep listening, but I've got to go tell my daughter it's time for bed. I'll be right back.
Alrighty, so I'm gonna drop you out for the moment. So I want to, I found of David through shout out to the LFR family. He was doing a live stream, and David came on right after me, and so since we're going down that road, and I have already seen him answer this question, we've already talked about it. Let's see. I just want to see. Let's just see, David. What is a woman?
I believe that
I gave you the answer for this, bro. Come on, I gave it to you. I
don't necessarily agree with your answer. I think that more effort should be made to distinguish trans women from biological women. I believe that trying to refer to them both as being the same entity is causing a lot of the tension socially that we experience within or not that we experience, but that is experienced with the trans community.
Okay, that's fair. So what would you where do you see that can be done? Because obviously from our side, where we have the perception that y'all are all on the same team. We gotta trans the kids and all that stuff. So where do you think that those types of changes can be made, or what kind of rhetoric can be adjusted? What do you mean when you bring that up?
So I think that whenever it comes to say like sports, I think that the conversation does need to be centered around what advantages does a trans woman maintain after some sort of transition, and does that provide a competitive advantage?
Why?
If you
why is that a relevant sticking point?
Well, because there are differences between like bone density, muscle mass that are typically maintained after a transition involving. Oh, did I just lose you guys? My monitor turned off. Okay.
Oh, we got you.
I gotta move a table. Well, I can't see you guys, so I'll just keep talking. But yeah. I think it's just something to do with my HDMI cable. I'll get it figured out here in a minute. But yeah, there are potential advantages that are associated with, like I said, the bone density, muscle mass, and probably height differences that are maintained by transitioned women. And I think that in certain contexts, that does provide a advantage. For example, say like in wrestling or perhaps swimming. Although I'm maybe a little less concerned about that.
But so I really want to drill down on why these differences are a thing that you think matter, because we've already we've already established that if we're going to separate sports, it's going to be an arbitrary line.
Mhm.
And we've chosen the arbitrary line of men and women because that seems to, on a balance of probabilities, work out for a relatively even playing field. If everybody was even and everybody had the exact same level, then sports wouldn't be very fun because there would be no competition.
Mhm.
And so to change that there would have to be a reason as to why that is no longer working. So what do you think is not working about separating by biological sex?
Well, whenever we drew those lines, there were not things that could be done to hormonally transition someone from one state to the other, right? And so we didn't have the blurred line that exists today. And so that's why I think it becomes a more nuanced conversation nowadays. There are if you took a transitioned trans woman, though, because of the fact that they have been taking various hormones to reduce the amount of testosterone that they have, increase the amount of estrogen, and whatever else happens within that, they also would not be able to compete within the male side of the sports as well. Now, the issue then that happens if we say you can't compete in one or the other is that there's not really a whole ton of trans people to create trans leagues.
So then why is the position similar to being short and not qualifying for the NBA? Why is if you are a woman, then if you're a man, then you just don't qualify for women's sports.
Right.
To steal a line from Tim Pool, we didn't have women's bathrooms and women's sports because men sometimes like to wear dresses. There are very clear and obvious differences, and within those differences, there may be different levels. But we have to have some. We either are not going to segregate sports at all, and it's just the best rise to the top, and women can go screw themselves, or we have the women's league as we have been. So why I'm not sure what the agent of change is. So if you decide that you need to be in this body, that body, whatever, the notion of why the categories exist, that doesn't change. Your mentality of wanting to identify as this, that, or the other doesn't change the reason that we have these categories.
Sure, but it may change the way in which we apply them. Now, like I said, as it pertains to sports, because of some potential advantages that may exist, it may just be that it makes sense to disqualify people who are taking hormonal treatments from sports. Now, that's a pretty exclusionary position. I think there's a lot of people on the left who would strongly disagree with that. But it's difficult because there has to be some sort of social give as well, because from what you heard on the LFR stream, there are trans women that I know that appear far more feminine than biological women that I also know. There are trans men that in many ways are more masculine than a number of biological men that I know. And so when you have the blurring of the lines that we do, at least in a social
I reject that premise, though. I don't think the lines have been blurred at all. How? Okay, so Dan, go ahead.
Well,
patiently waiting there. Go for it.
Oh, I've been doing my best. And it's an argument that's been used against, our side of the field, but I find it's more a lack of argument against theirs. I keep hearing this whole, you say only biological women should participate in women's sports, and yet some biological women have high testosterone and they're not allowed to play because, they get tested or whatnot. Well, yeah, I agree with that because, that's an unfair biological advantage. That's great. You were born tall or whatever else, but that is a hormonal advantage you should not have in that thing. And sure, they accuse you of doping, but all it is you've got a hormonal advantage. That's unfair. It affects your bone density and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, fast twitch muscle fibers, all that kind of stuff.
But on the flip side of that, you could take someone like Michael Phelps, who has basically genetic advantages that cause him to not respond to lactic acid in the same way.
Right, and so that's just part of the male-female division. Some males are going to be better, some males are going to be worse. So let's go to Melty and then back to Daniel.
So the way you fix the sports issue is you have a cross gender leagues. So you could have trans people, you could have men and women in these leagues, and then we wait and see how many of these teams that make money only get men and only get trans men, and then or whatever is a woman to a man, and then you see that there's going to be women kicked out of this trans or this co-gender sport because they are just not like you can get women in the NFL. Like women can be signed on the NFL. They're just not signed because they have lower muscle mass and lower bone density. And that's what it is. And that's why we have these women leagues so they can compete in sports that they love in a professional way and make money on them.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, you don't see trans men going into men's sports. It just doesn't happen.
I mean, it does happen. They just...
Which one?
There is one case, I believe it's in Texas. It is a trans girl who was trying to go into male sports. They made her play against females, and she dominated like none other.
Okay, all right.
So that's the only case. That's the only case that I'm aware of. But yes, by and large, it doesn't happen.
By and large, it's not happening.
Yeah, by and large, so that's an outlier. That's a rarity. You don't see women transitioning to men and then going into men's sports.
But also look at the fact that she is on testosterone, and she was also going up against girls because they were forcing her to play against her biological sex, which again goes to that point where it's unfair because you test for those type of hormones in those girls, and you tell natural girls they can't play with those hormones. So why does the person who transitioned get to play?
Exactly. That used to be called cheating.
Right. And here's my next thing.
Maybe it shouldn't have been, but it definitely was.
Yeah.
And it's a question for everybody, really. A record is stood for M119 is probably going to be able to tell me right around where it was, but it stood since the 70s or 80s. You got FloJo's fucking speed record. She's the fastest woman alive. Has been since the 70s or 80s. How long do you think it's going to be before that falls?
If you allow men to compete, it won't be long. It will not be long.
I'm just asking.
I want to say something to that question or what Ziggs just put up. There's enough trans now for their own category, but how many of these trans people want to play sports? Like, is it only going to be people that transition from male to female I think a lot of the people that are in sports that transition are doing it for the gain that they can get in sports. They want to be the best. They're not the best in their own categories, so they switch categories to try to be the best.
The only place where they're willing to actually do something competitive, but is it really competitive? I'm being facetious.
Pokemon's an anime, not real life, damn it.
So I mean, it just David. Then a lot of the again, just generally speaking, a lot of the talk from the left about minority communities and women's rights, and this seems to have gone by the wayside in place of trans women who are biologically men. Where do you fall with all that? Do you see the contradiction there, or do you think it makes sense?
I think the instinctive reaction is to protect the rights and pursuit of happiness of the trans individual. And because of that, they are willing to go further on defending their right than they are to defend the competitiveness of various sports.
Swear to God, no.
Hey, what you say, Dan?
Oh, I was talking to my cat. She's getting ready to hop into my face.
Max.
Yeah.
Go ahead, David.
I mean, like I said, I think that it's genuinely a nuanced problem that doesn't have very clean solutions. Because, like I said, either you decide that these people are not deserving of engaging in these sports in some way, shape, or form, or you try to find some sort of compromise that involves transitioned individuals performing within certain leagues in the sports. Now, you could change that and try to go towards like a BMI or a overall weight class for various sports, but there you still have the issue with bone density and like relative muscle masses. I mean, biological women are going to be dealing with larger reserves of fat stored on the body just naturally. And I'm kind of speaking on my ass a little bit in terms of I don't know how much is impacted by taking hormonal treatments. But
the last I heard, I believe males lose, I think it's something like 5% of their muscle mass a year from where they were.
Wow. So let's go to our
cases where there are trans women competing in like women's leagues. There's usually at least some period after the beginning of that transition before they are allowed to compete. But like I said, it's all a really gray area, and
it's the same amount of time as a misdemeanor probationary period. It's about 18 months.
So let's go to the only female that we actually have on the panel, M169. How do you feel about the fight that women and feminists, as much as I might hate what feminism is now, the fight that went on to create these women only spaces that are now getting erased? How do you feel about that?
It's uncomfortable. It's not right, and it's not fair.
How so?
Well, okay, so William/Leah Thomas. I don't know if Thomas was taking any sort of hormonal therapy whatsoever.
Don't believe so.
My understanding, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong, he basically declared himself trans, that he wanted to be called Leah, grew his hair out, and started competing against the girls.
Mm-hmm.
They did not tell those girls that this biologically intact male was going to be in their locker room, changing and showering in front of them. Those girls were, and when they complained about it, they said, "We've got some resources for you to change your attitudes."
Well, not just that. I mean, you've got the fact that on the slide, they changed that bathroom to a unisex bathroom. So it was okay for Thomas to go.
Yeah.
So
not just him.
Yeah. So
any male.
So M169, can you, we're all males and men here. So can you kind of just dive into what exactly is so uncomfortable about having a trans woman who identifies as a woman in specifically the bathrooms and locker rooms? Why is that something that should not be swatted away as bigotry or just get over it or something like that? Why is that a reasonable position to have? That I don't want biological men, even if they identify as women, I don't want them in my locker room.
Because honestly, it's something someone's just saying. If you're still an intact male, there's going to be responses there. So, I mean, that's just biological.
So
that's going to happen. I'm sorry, I'm not comfortable being naked in a space with a naked male.
So what if somebody says, well, that's your problem?
Risk.
That's your issue.
That's not my problem.
Most trans people are not. We use the RPay for the what it sounds like. Most trans people are not looking to go and RPay women. They're not. They're just trying to go pee.
If they're just trying to go pee, then they're going to be in a stall blocked off from everybody else anyway. I'm talking about a communal space where each of you is naked. Those girls on that swim team had to walk into that locker room, see a naked man, and a naked man with an erection. How do I know? How do those girls know that this man is not saying what he's saying to be competitive in a sport that he wasn't very competitive against males?
You don't.
You don't know that, and I can understand that you say that most trans women have no interest in being whatever term you use. I'm sorry, I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I understand. You understand what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
May
you can
not
say
be.
SA or any of those things. We just don't
Right,
want to
they're
say
not
the
interested in
RAPE. We just any other
Gotcha.
anachronism for that works.
They're not. Most might not be interested in assaulting someone. Okay. But you're asking women to put themselves in a very vulnerable position in situations like that, and like at WeSpa, where you don't know that. Why should any of them put themselves in that risk when they don't know that? If you're talking about walking into a public restroom where there are individual stalls, I'll be honest with you, I don't really care. I just want to go to the bathroom. They just want to go to the bathroom. I don't care.
But it doesn't stop there, and that's I think the big point. And shout out to Xander Crew. Welcome to the party. Said exposure is assault, and
it is,
and
on a legal basis, it is.
Xander says trans ideology is the Trojan horse they will and are using to make child loving legal and rational. The elite don't care about people feeling good with their identification. They care about what's leaking out.
It's fine. You can just call them maps.
There you go. Maps. There we go. David, any response to the idea that even though I agree, I was kind of playing devil's advocate, but I absolutely believe that most trans people have no desire to hurt anyone or do anything like that. But it opens the door for that one person to use the sensibilities that we're now all having. Oh, okay, you're a different gender, then you can go in this bathroom. And then you have the one shitty person who's like, I'm going to go in and do, I just got to say I'm a woman. Why is that to you? Why is that not a valid position?
So,
or is it
first, I just want to say, I don't know what the hormonal situation was with Leah, but something was mentioned that stood out a little bit. What if Leah had undergone surgery? Does that change the equation, and in what way?
Shout out to Bill Bradley. Welcome to the party. But let's go to let's throw that back to M169. What do you think about that? Because you did bring that up, and I wouldn't have, because I don't think it. Go ahead.
That is slightly different, but you don't have to have. This word is a little bit difficult.
Well,
is a penis required for an assault? Not necessarily.
Oh, that's a no.
But that does change things. That's a different scenario.
Yeah,
that is a different scenario, which would require a bit more thought on my part, because quite frankly, I hadn't thought about that in those terms. I am specifically concerned with an intact male being in a space where women are naked. I'm not
Because I
comfortable
think
with
David
it.
brings up a good point about
He does.
pointing out reasons that may be auxiliary, but if they're not the core of the issue, then we can get lost in the weeds of, well, I don't want to be around a person who is this, that, and the other. But like Xander's saying, cosmetic surgery doesn't change someone's sex. Not a different scenario at all. But and so that's why I wouldn't have brought it up, which is why it's a valid question from David. So let's go to what Bill Bradley. Welcome to the party. So the modern conception of human sexuality has very iffy foundations. The Kentler experiment in Germany was sponsored by the German government, and it put homeless boys with boy touchers. Yikes. Goes on to say the German government admitted fault and paid out in a suit a few years ago, but Kentler is still taught.
The study is still taught.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you. See, thank you, Bill Bradley. Yeah, I mean the idea here is the no dicks allowed. Period. Fair enough.
I'm right along with that.
Well, but it goes back to David's question about, okay, so does that change things if you get the SRS surgery? And I say, no, I don't think it changes things at all. I think whether you are intact or you're not, that we have these distinctions that may have been arbitrary at one time, but are traditionally set in set in our culture. And so I'm willing to have the conversation about organically changing our culture. What I'm not willing to do is have a very, 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 very small group of people demand that my culture is changed for them. That's what I have an issue with. And so,
I was going to say, I think the best thing for them to demand, especially in terms of the bathrooms and locker rooms and stuff like that, bitch, piss, and moan for family, for the unisex stuff to be added into those spaces. Go change there. I know you're a small percentage, but if anybody's comfortable with going to change with the other gender, they can go there. You can go there for any point and purpose you like.
Yeah, I generally agree with that. The only question there becomes who provides the funding for it.
Always a good question.
Yeah.
Always a good question.
Because there's going to be a cost to it.
Most colleges are on the left. Make them pay for it.
Well, a lot of family stores, like places like Walmart or Target or whatever, they do have individual, they call unisex or family restroom, where if a single parent with a child, a young child that needs changing or whatever, can go into that restroom, take care of things, and you're good to go. You're fine. You lock the door, no problem. Those are in a lot of spaces anymore. Maybe not every space, but they're in more spaces than they used to be.
I think that's a good progression, because also on the other side of the equation, trans women are huge recipients of assault as well.
True.
So
Yeah.
I want to be conscientious of the concerns of biological women who do not want to experience SA, or just anyone who doesn't want to be on the receiving side of that. But it comes down to, how do we integrate these people that now do exist, especially given that there are more nuanced biological considerations than there were back in the 60s. Because back then, the option that someone had, if they were interested in transitioning, was maybe cosmetic surgery, or just generally cross-dressing, but there weren't as prolific hormonal treatments and things that genuinely change the way that your body operates.
Fair enough. So I want to pose one last question before we tie a bow on all of this. Real quick, though, let's give a shout out to Dan Jensen, the sponsor of the stream. Thank you. Marty appreciates the, you can see the thing right here that he already ate from. So thank you so much, Dan. You have a fantastic night. Let's catch a couple more of these comments, and we'll circle back and call it a night. So Bill Bradley says the concept of gender and sex being different things is tied up in social construction, which is the rationalization of the maps. I completely agree. Tony Baloney said they'll force men to share with transgenders in the bathroom. I don't really have an issue with that, to be honest, but they won't create unisex. Yeah. I don't. It's retrofitting is going to be something you have to have money to do. Xander says you stop going along with their delusions and get to the source of this mass hysteria being pushed by TikTok and the elite. Trans people don't need affirmation; they need a cold hard dose of a reality. I thought you were going somewhere different with that, and I was almost like, damn, I should. Yep, that's exactly what I thought. I was like, oh, I should have read this first. And then Zig says you cannot change the chromosomes. The chromosome determines the sex. Okay, so I want to get your opinions on this, and we will call it a night. We'll quit while we're ahead because I think this has been a fantastic conversation. Why is this? Well, first, would we all agree that there is at least some aspect of social contagion to this? I think three of you I know. David, would you agree that there's a social contagion aspect to some of the rise in Gen Z who identifies as part of the LGBT community?
Can you define that for me?
Meaning that it is people who are depressed or have some other mental disorder or are autistic, and they are having trouble with their lives, and they see becoming non-binary or taking on a new gender as a way to help boost their self-esteem. And it becomes something that they see as like, oh, I got all this attention for being trans when I was posting the same stuff before, nobody cared. Maybe I should keep going with this. And then other people see that and do the same thing.
Sure, I think there's a degree of that.
Okay, fair. So if we all agree that at least some, we don't even need to put a number on it. It doesn't really matter for my question, but there is some aspect of the LGBT community that without the social pressure would not be trans or would not be non-binary, whatever. Is it reasonable? Maybe it's not. Is it reasonable? Hey, shout out to Bailey. What's good, Bailey? Coming in right at the end. Welcome though. So is it possible that simply this is a huge semantic mistake where people are mixing up the word gender and personality?
I mean,
anybody?
I think how you present yourself is certainly a part of your personality.
Surely, yeah. I mean, when I was in school, it was being emo. A little bit like when I was in middle school, it was being goth. And there was always a thing. Somebody said something about we were talking about mods, and I went to the movie. Damn, I don't remember the movie now, but there was a group called the Mod. What fucking movie is that? I don't remember. But like being a mod, that was a style of dress. And so it seems to me that right now all we're doing is these cliques of personality and character have been redefined into personality, and now gender actually doesn't mean anything at all, and there is no such thing as gender. There's just your sex and your personality, which is completely about this thing you call your gender identity. That is what I believe is going on with the social contagion aspect. I don't know if it's 100%, like Peter Boghossian says. I don't know if it's 50%. I don't know if it's 90%, but I am almost certain that it is some percentage.
Well, it's like if you let's say someone like you go to school or something and you're wearing a shirt and then someone else is wearing you're wearing a new shirt and then someone else is wearing another shirt that everyone's like, oh, that's a nice shirt, bro, I love your shirt. I feel like a lot of people that maybe don't have a lot of friends or don't get a lot of encouragement in life, they're like, oh, I need to get a shirt like that. So people like say, oh, like say that stuff to me, or like you don't like a show and you don't care about it, but everyone's like, oh, this show is so good, I love this show. And you don't want to be the odd one man out saying, oh yeah, I don't like this show very much. Like people change their opinions based on the things around them. And if they think like, if there's like people that are socially awkward and they can't get ahead in life in one way, they're going to change how they are as a person. And that might be their sex to get ahead in life.
Well said. I want to go around, but really quick, Tony's got a good one here. So I think it's people who have no personality. So they have to use their political leaning as a substitute. That is exactly what I mean. So this is precisely what I mean. It's people who like in any other time would just be like normie people. And then you think about the notion that when Trump came along, that everything got politicized. You might be, some of you out there might be too young to remember what life was like before Trump. And before that, like you could just not be into politics. It was like there was people who were into politics and then there was everybody else. Yep. And now it's the other way around. It's somehow if you've somehow hid yourself and you don't know jack shit about politics. I mean, you still think you do. You hear the people talking about it all the time. But everybody has this this perspective. And this is why I think it is so very important to meet people where they're at, to have these discussions about the street level, personal level, cultural issues, so that when it comes to stuff like, should we be in Ukraine? Then people have a grounding, a foundation of what they think in their own lives. So they're not talking about this from a perspective of, this is just a video game. This is just an idea. This is real life. Anybody?
I agree with you.
Yeah, there's not much to add, really, on that one. At least.
I am amazing.
Summed it up rather well.
But
beautiful.
I think it may have started us a little bit before Trump, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I think it started a bit in, back in 2008 when Obama was elected. There was this vision kind of started. I mean, I'm not a Democrat. I'm actually shifted a little bit more to the center than I was, say, 15 years ago, or even maybe 20 years ago. But I was like, okay, this is awesome. I may not agree with his politics and his policies, but a self-identified African American was elected president. This is amazing. And I honestly thought we were at the, that nail in the coffin of that America is a racist country. That was it. It didn't happen. And so I think that wheel kind of started there. Mm-hmm. So then there was things, oh, you don't like Obama, you must be a racist. And it was like, no, I'm not. That
I just don't like the two.
Yeah. And then Trump hit the scene and it just exploded even more. I think it just kind of kicked into that higher gear. Then we had COVID and that affected things. You've got, the proliferation of the trans issue. That's driving things. And it's like I said, everything is now political. Mm-hmm. Now we can just have an opinion and say, well, this is kind of what I think about this. Everything is political. And it's so, well, if you're on this side of this, then that makes you this. And if you're on the other side of it, then that makes you that, which makes you, to whatever position you're coming from, a horrible person.
Right. Well said. And same with Xander's comment here. It said, as a gay person, I feel for the trans folk. And I did not see this comment, because usually it's like, they're like, hey, we had a LGB and it was working great. And then the T's came in and the joke. But as Xander says, as a gay person, I feel for the trans folks, because the majority of them are just gay people with shaky self-identity who have been brainwashed. by the left. And I mean,
Mhm.
how can you disagree? How can you disagree? It says I'm literally watching my own people getting castrated in mass by their own foolishness. And I mean, beautifully said. Beautifully said. So, let's go around and any last words for the people. Let's start with Daniel. Daniel, what do you got for
Jeez. If
Put
you
you on the
don't
spot.
pay attention to history, it always repeats itself. Stop trying to burn books. Stop doing dumb stuff. Read your history.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for hanging out. We will catch you in Discord. All right, M169. Any last words for the people?
Again, I've been trying to say this a bit whenever I get on a stream. This is new to me. Try to take the time to at least listen to where someone's coming from. Don't listen just to respond. Truly listen to what someone has to say. And I can agree with Daniel. Pay attention to history. It does repeat itself. We don't, and there's a lot of history we don't want or need to be repeating. So, take those cues. And thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said. And hopefully I will see you at the after party. Take care. All right, Melted Mind Media. Tell the people who you are, where they can find you, and what do you do?
Melted Mind Media. You can find me on YouTube at Melted Mind Media and on Twitter at Melted Mind Media. And I do want to say, even though I do not agree with David on a lot of things, I do believe he's a good person, and I do believe he has morals. We just do not have the same morals.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Shout out, shout out. Thank you so much. I just dropped the link to Melted Mind Media's channel. Please go check him out. He and I just did an awesome collab, and I'm sure we will do another one soon. I will see you over in the after party, brother. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, David, we made it. We done did it. We done did it. What did you think? Was I too much of an asshole? Was I how did we do?
I think this was a really good conversation. I think that we were able to stay on the topics without getting personal or anything. And I think there ought to be a lot more of this sort of thing. I'm trying this thing where I'm trying to reach out more into some of these spaces that probably lean more conservative, because I feel like over the past 10 years or so, we've sort of relegated ourselves deeper and deeper into our own bubbles, and that's a big cause of why it feels like we're living in different realities, and so we need more of these kind of conversations. So I was glad to be a part of this.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. I am very much glad that you were willing to do this. You'd be surprised at how many people are not willing to do this, especially coming into quote unquote enemy territory. And I was thinking about it. I was thinking about like, yo, should I just be a complete asshole and just sandbag him? No, I'm just kidding. But that's the kind of mentality that a lot of people have when they're like, ooh, I got somebody who disagrees with me. Let's make it a bloodbath. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who came in and were like, all right, they're just kind of talking, and probably left. And to those people, I mean, hey, there's plenty of strife. There's plenty of argumentation out there. But as I've always said, on this channel, what we are looking to do is fix, not just help, but fix the political discourse in this country, and hopefully at the world at large. So David, I'm going to give you the floor. Any last words for the people? Anything you want them to know? Any social media? Anything like that? The floor is yours.
No, I mean, like I said, I'm not too interested in putting myself out there right now, but you can always reach me through your Discord channel, and look forward to having more conversations like this in the future.
Beautiful, beautiful. Can everybody write David in the chat as we say goodbye? Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, and I will see you in the after party. Take care, brother. Thank you so much. All right. So I didn't really know how that was gonna go, but I think it went pretty well. I really like David. I really appreciate him coming through. We were talking for a while about this exact kind of stuff last night in the Discord, which you should join. And it's awesome to be able to continue that and to find people who who are willing to discuss things. Like, that's it. That's it. Just discuss things. That's it. It's not that hard. It's not that complicated. And yet somehow people are so terrified. And we do have 100% of people saying that David is, in fact, a good guy. And you definitely find me agreeing. But it's just sad. It's just sad that it's this difficult to have something like that. So, the fact that we are not only able to discuss these things, we're able to disagree, and we're able to kind of push back on each other and know that it's all in good faith because we want to do better. Nobody here is trying to win an argument. Nobody is trying to win anything. We're just trying to have a conversation. And so just as M169 said, just listen. Don't listen to speak. Listen to what other people have to say because they might know more than you. And that's okay. The only way that that's going to stop is if you actually listen to them and know the things that they're saying. You can't know everything if you're not willing to learn anything. So with that, actually, we got a bunch of comments here that I didn't get to. So before we head out, we'll just see if you guys are still here. Then we'll go through them and then definitely join the after party. So I think this is where we left up. Yeah, it said, imagine being that boring. Totally boring. Totally agree, Tony. Nick said, good streaming conversation, everyone. Being willing to talk about an issue while remaining respectful of each other is key to compromise. Thank you, sir. Xander says, literal empty shells filled up by the corporate ideology of the season. Yep. They're all looking for attention. We're in the attention economy, guys. That's what it is. That's what it is. And as much as we can hate that is what it is, as much as we can look and say, don't buy into that, remember that especially the younger that they are, the less control they have over that. This is just the world that they live in. And so we have to remember that there's the people who pushed this ideology and brought us to this space. And then there's the people who just exist in it. And they're not the same group. Bill Bradley, shout out to Bill Bradley, said people turning their politics into both their identity and their religion. Bingo. 100% agree. Tony Baloney says, exactly. The hilarity is that they push socialism, but really it's the shittiest form of capitalism. Exploitation. Exactly. Bill Bradley says people with actual gender dysphoria have a developmental disorder. Brain scan studies have shown that their mind literally functions as if they were the opposite sex. Biological still, and most people playing games with identity don't have diagnosable gender dysphoria on top of it. Facts. So I would love to see, where it like, even if the brain scans show that your mind works exactly like a woman, if you're a man, I'm curious to know the mechanism by which you could understand that. How, I'm genuinely asking, but if you've only ever been a man who feels like a woman, how do you not just assume that that's what being a man is? I don't know. Tony says, exploiting a social cause to force consumerism. Democrats are more capitalist than the Republicans, and it's just hilarious that nobody sees it. I guess when you put it that way, it makes sense. Xander says, I'm literally watching my own people, get castrated en masse by their own foolishness. Bill Bradley says, most people playing game. Oh, I did that one already. There's no way statistically this many people are trans. No, not at all. Bill says sex and gender are linked as evidenced by gender dysphoria brain scan results. The outcomes are all related to biology. One is just a developmental issue. Interesting. Okay. Tony says, great discussion. Oh, you have a new sub. Shout out to Tony. Welcome to the crew. Definitely join the Discord. We are headed right over there as soon as this is done. And it is free. It's free to join. We don't have to worry about, dancing around our words with YouTube and all that stuff. It is a fantastic time. Come and join us. See, that's what I love to see. All right. Zig says, I see more non-trans people push trans agendas. Yup.
Hell yeah.
Yup. All right. I haven't seen Barbie. I do want to see Barbie just because a lot of people have been talking about it, but I haven't seen it yet. Dana says, thank you for coming through, David. It was a pleasure talking to you. I hope to see you in the Discord. I'm sure we will. Tony says, the fact that he's even here and willing to discuss without making bad faith arguments, that's a good person in 2023. Spot on, sir. Spot on. Spot on. We got a lot of thanks for David. Yeah, I'm old enough to remember the 90s when you could still discuss things. Remember those days, the good old days. But I was going to say the Frankfurt School is the foundation of woke issues. The founders worked with the OSS, the precursor to the CIA. It's an op. It's an op. Of course it is. What else would it be? What else would it be? Tony Baloney says, none of the left's arguments stand up to logical tests. If we can teach people to set emotions aside and use logic, we can change things. Bingo. But I have no idea how. I do exactly what you are watching right now. That is how we do it. That is how we do it. I mean, like I've said, I'm pretty sure I got the answers. Just do this. And I was just speaking with Peter Boghossian. Please definitely go check out that interview. I'm pretty proud of it. And he was not really able to poke many holes in my idea of the American identity. And we can get into that in, I'm not going to get into that now, but that's what I think we need. A shared American identity. Once we have a shared American identity that is a secular identity, but that does not conflict with anybody's religious identity, then we can all be one. And of course, Nick always saying thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I really enjoyed this. I hope you guys did too. I know it wasn't necessarily the most smooth transition from watching clips of the culture war to discussing Ukraine and stuff, but if you liked it, we could definitely do more, and I will get better at the segues and the transitions. But either way, I hope you guys had fun. I had a blast, and I hope you'll join me over in the Discord party. Like I said, the link is in the description below. If there's any mods still here, please drop the link one more time. It is free. We are hanging out, having conversations all the time, and then after every single live stream, we go in there for an after party, which is what we are about to do. And with that said, guys, thank you so much. This has been my co-host Marty, and I am your host Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, I am out of here. Peace.